Warframe. Man, we're in sync today.
We really are. Hello and welcome to episode 250 of the Crate and Crowbar. It is the 15th of August, 2018. My name is Chris Thurston, and joining me tonight is Tom Francis.
Hello.
Tom Senior.
Hello.
And Alex Wiltshire.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry for whissing a meek. Sorry for whissing the meek, everybody.
Sorry, don't whisk those meeks.
There's a good meek to whisk.
Good. I'm not really recording this, because we started off high energy and I want to keep going. But we
Meek shall inherit the worth.
We definitely whisked a meek, and I can only apologise.
How do you feel about the quarter millennium?
The quarter millennium of the podcast.
Is that how millenniums work?
Probably.
Just 250 podcasts?
Yeah. Well...
no strong feelings
A
on
quarter
that.
millennium can only kill 1 in 4 jars of mayonnaise. I don't know how to respond, Alex. No, it's interesting, isn't it, that it happened for that long? That's all you can say.
You're talking about it in the past tense already.
I mean, the podcast. Well, it's because I killed it within seconds of the beginning. You know, like, I got just about through the first half of the intro and then...
We did do a 5-year podcast and made a big sort of song and dance about that, so it feels like we're all exhausted already after that.
There's no songs or dances left.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I had this thought like, but episode 200 felt like a big deal, and that was almost a year ago, so, you know, I mean, you can't just keep celebrating forever.
I remember on Edge it was this weird thing where you had like the issue number, and whenever it got to a round number, you felt that, issue 300, issue 200, should be sort of like a thing about, but then you've also got the year anniversaries. So I think it's Edge's 25th anniversary right now.
Yeah.
But they celebrated issue 300 not that long ago. Can't quite remember. But,
yeah.
But it's like, it feels weird. Just like, well, it feels increasingly arbitrary for these two things.
Yeah.
The Edge 25th anniversary has done a lovely split run of 4 covers of original artwork showing, amazingly Solaire from the Dark Souls series.
Yeah.
Like, of all the ways to pick Dark Souls, I love that they picked the one that praises the sun.
But you almost, if they'd done like a kind of, and it would have looked lovely, but if they'd done like a moody kind of bonfire motif or something, I feel like they would have been missing an opportunity to put Solaire on the cover.
Well, that's quite right. They obviously saw what was supposed to happen and made it happen. It's lovely.
Make it celebratory.
I remember,
Absolutely.
Was it the 250th or the 25th or the 20th anniversary of PC Gamer? It was the 20th anniversary of PC Gamer. Because it was, Graham's last issue was the one where the cover was art editor John Strike wearing a Oculus Rift.
Yes,
With
it
in
was.
huge letters, this is the future of PC games.
Yeah. PC Gamer predicting the future poorly for 20 years.
Which was, to be fair, a tribute to the very first issue of PC Gamer,
Yes.
where the cover line is, this is the future of PC games, with a bad 90s CG render of the USS Enterprise. So,
Well, it was in it.
it was like,
Continuity is there.
yeah, it's like holodecks all the way down. But yeah, no, 250 Crate and Crowbars. Imagine. Well, don't have to imagine, because they exist.
We're here.
Yeah. We should just continue as if it were any other number, because soon it will be.
Because the news doesn't stop for any anniversary.
Yeah, well, actually, the news is sort of
The
starting.
news sometimes does stop. Sometimes we just have a week where the news stopped.
Yeah, I mean, we had a long run of
Start
them.
again.
Yeah.
Whistling a meek definitely meant that there's some thews. So many things we missed include the first footage of RDR2, RDR.
Red Dead Redemption.
Red Harder.
Which I thought I was very interested to see. And then the weird salesperson like voiceover. Just at first I thought, wow, this is really kind of like dry and sapping the joy out of it. And then I got like, I checked that thing where you sort of mouse over the bottom to see the progress bar and like, oh my god, I'm only halfway through. I actually didn't make it. I couldn't watch it all. I'm just like, I'm just not focusing. I'm looking through the screen. It's like a magic eye. I'm staring past the pixels because the voiceover is boring me so much. I can't focus on
What if
what's
it's
happening.
more of an in-character voice, like an in-world voice, like, you know, you get to form a bond with your horse. What the fuck did I just do? That wasn't like in Wild West. Can someone who does a Wild West accent please do this?
This is strange, it would be weird either way, because if it was like,
Howdy,
Howdy. I'm here to
Form a
tell you
bond with
about
your
Red
horse.
Dead Redemption 2.
On your PS4.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
But I remember they did
It's
this.
a haunted box full of cowboys.
We don't know how it works. But that would be too far, yeah. But I remember they did this with GTA 5 as well. It was like, I'm not sure what
It was the same.
kind of
format,
sales
wasn't it?
videos I've seen that
Similar,
are like this, but it's, for some reason back then it reminded me of like a, sort of like someone advertising like an AR-16 or something, trying to explain all the features in this really dry technical way.
But it kind of fitted with a GTA, because I think I watched that kind of placing it within a GTA kind of infomercial. So it kind of, it was in world, whereas putting a GTA into infomercial into 1890, whatever
Because
it is.
it's like slightly slicker than an infomercial, which puts it in the category of Kickstarter for office equipment. Like, like this dynamic shelf revolutionizes the standing working experience by allowing you to work anywhere you like.
That might have been in the RDR trailer, and I wouldn't know.
Shave your pencils. Ever sharper.
Detecting
Form a bond with your pencils.
there's a whiff of great incredible hypocrisy here, because we have criticised a lot of trailers for not
Especially
explaining what
me.
the games are, and we've criticised games for being named poorly and it's being displayed poorly, and yet when a company does exactly what we want, it's like, oh, that's really actually fucking boring. I totally understand now why they did it the other way.
It's just,
It was because there's no truth there. Like, it was still just kind of empty, kind of promises, statements.
The actual content was also extremely bland and like, I'm sure there is
Without-
interesting stuff, but they
it
just
was
said
leaving
like
lots of space to be able
new
to kind
interactions
of delve
beyond
into the details.
new interactions beyond just shooting, and you see a guy punching someone.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I actually found two of them. There was one where it was talking about how it combines story and gameplay like never before. And then it's just against the scene of you just shooting some dudes.
this is the thing.
And then
Imagine
there's the second
you
one
could shoot the
saying,
dudes.
your guns aren't the only way to interact with the environment.
That was it.
And it's against for some punching.
The best bit for me is, I think it was something like, you choose how you react to the people you meet on the frontier, and it's just clop, 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 clop. Nice horse.
I did love that bit, though.
In fairness, that is appealing.
That was an awesome
And like, and the other line I actually made notes, was, we've also made improvements to shooting and fighting. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's the bullet.
Two kinds of gameplay.
Yeah, exactly. Also the bit where it's like, and you'll make choices about the fates of the people you meet, and it's footage of a man literally dangling off a cliff. and you walk up to him and the two options are save and kill. Where it's like, I want like, how did you get in this predicament? How long have you been in this predicament?
I've been there since I started the game.
I'm going to kill you.
Also, I thought that scenario looked exactly like one that I vaguely remember from the first game.
I think, being more serious, I think my issue with it, because I think on principle, you're like, oh, this is a trailer, this shows the actual game. But it kind of doesn't.
There's no HUD.
There's no HUD, like it kind of, it's like they
I
promised.
bet you there won't be a HUD. I bet it'll be there'll be it'll be either understated.
The HUD
or
is your
very-
horse.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just ask your
Just
horse
look really
things.
closely at your horse, and then you can see the mini-map.
Horse, how much health
Shit
do I
in
have?
In its tail.
Thank you.
A horse-up display.
This is the thing. So they showed enough of the game. I think this is the reason it was a peculiarly bad trailer, I think. Because they sort of showed the game, but in a way that I feel like any hype that's generated by what they did show has to be a bit weirdly disingenuous, because they made it look really boring. They made it look like watching your friend play one of these. Like, if you walk in and someone's playing an open world game and you have no context for what's going on, like why it's exciting that they have a deer on the back of their horse or whatever. And someone's like, and you're like, are you having fun? They're like, oh yeah, I'm having fun. But like watching someone play an open world game for a long time, it's just like, what the hell are you doing? Like, it's just chores, right? Like, and it can be fun, but you have to kind of, be in it. And this for me was like, it wasn't the excitement of like a well-produced trailer where you get the kind of, the intended feel, if not the kind of minute to minute. You got like, here is the minute and by minute banality of Red Dead Redemption 2. But like watching someone else experience it like a dream. And he's like, oh, like that feeling of like, I got this full picture of what's in the game, but in a way that doesn't sell it to me. Cause I'm like, I don't actually want to do any more crafting mini games. I don't really want to do any more card mini games, to be honest. There was not, I don't really want to have like the canned fist fight that happens outside the saloon. And I can almost see the mini map icon for that. you know, and I can see the tutorial version of that when it happens as part of what will subsequently be an open world event, takes place during the kind of initial series of linear missions to introduce you to it and introduce you to the icon. And I could sort of see like my life flashing before my eyes, but in a forward way, if that makes sense. And also backwards, because all of that stuff was in Red Dead 1 as well.
Maybe in the next trailer, which will be identically long and just as languid, there'll be some features that you'll also be bored by.
Yeah, because Red Dead Redemption 1 is one of my favourite games, but I just didn't.
I'm wearing the t-shirt.
Alex is literally wearing a t-shirt.
Alex is actually wearing a Red Dead Redemption t-shirt.
Yeah, that's totally accidental. I'm on holiday.
I was quite excited by the trailer because it did the thing that we were asking for in a few episodes ago, where it showed you on your horse riding over a hillside and seeing the world stretching out in front of you. And
visually, that was what got it for me. Because,
stunning, yeah. The sense of scale to that world is on, whether so Skyrim, for example, uses tricks, like perspective tricks, to make the mountains seem further away and larger than they are, even though the travel time is much shorter than it should be based on how they're actually kind of projected in front of you. But it feels like Red Dead feels like a vast space. The way, though, that American landscape is rendered, it fills me with so much excitement.
And you kind of know they'll do it well as well.
Yeah, and you just know there's going to be there's going to be
fucking possums everywhere.
Yeah, cartwrights. So it's just sort of hidden in those beautiful sort of the beautiful kind of Wild West wasteland, and it is a kind of a wasteland game, but not the way that we've seen. It's always post-apocalypse, right? When you see a wasteland, but this is like an undiscovered raw place, and that is the Wild West. And the way they've realised that scenery is incredible. I think even in that trailer.
I think not to end my moaning.
Right.
Like I realised thinking about it, all of my moaning is reserved for the single player. Also, I don't care about the story, and I love the narrative of the first game. And I think it's the first line in the trailer is like, Red Dead Redemption takes you to the West on the edge of change.
I thought, that's what the first
exactly what the first game's about.
Sure, yeah.
And it's like, and hang on, this is a prequel, so it has to be less close to the edge of change than the first one, because the first one ends in
Maybe it's just further east.
This is the Tomb Raider problem. Every single one of the new Tomb Raider reboots is Lara's becoming the Tomb Raider. In this one, she becomes the Tomb Raider. She finally becomes the Tomb Raider. Yeah, but
this is like having a prequel to that, where it's like, this is the previous time she became the Tomb Raider prior to the first time you thought you should, yeah. But I actually, all of that open world stuff, all of the systems and the wildlife and tying people up and leaving them on railway tracks and all of the stuff that was good about the first game, even if that stuff is just in HD, basically, and sort of moderately improved, I am excited for the GTA Online equivalent version of that. Like, I think they'd be mad if that's not happening, because, GTA Online killed single player GTA 5 by proving that it was the more profitable kind of enterprise.
It sounds like it made bank. For sure.
Yeah. And, that, like, GTA 5 is a weird experience for me because it was like, oh, I hate this, but the multiplayer is incredible. And so it's like, I actually hated the single player, but, and having been a Rockstar fan, I lost all my faith. And then, but I love the multiplayer, which I wouldn't have expected from a Rockstar game. Right. And now I feel like I'm going into this is like, I'm looking forward to this kind of like pseudo MMO cowboy game that I'll play with my friends. And there'll be a bolt-on story that really does have to win me over. To make me want to invest time in skinning possums forever.
There is a lot of bullshit in GTA Online. As much as I love GTA Online, I've had some great experiences with it, especially in the heists and the more structured co-op activities. But in the kind of just general open world, it is just kill and be killed, and everyone's just encouraged to, murder everyone, and it's chaos, which is what GTA is kind of supposed to be, right? But if there's just a more structured cooperative world, like that would be incredible. Like just send me out into that place with, a posse of friends. We've all got our own horses, and we all have bonds with our separate horses, which is obviously an important feature in the new Red Dead Redemption. Just ride out and fight bandits and stuff. That could be incredible.
I love the bit in the trailer where, like, different horses are suitable for different jobs. Riding.
That was good.
Riding fast.
Can I have the riding one, please?
Yeah.
I don't want the accounting one. We went straight to that. Do we actually know if it's coming to PC?
Nope.
No.
Well, disregard this segment.
Well, so
surely it will, though, right?
There's been tons of leaked kind of like LinkedIn profiles and stuff. The other thing is, that someone discovered in GTA Online a crossover, like a launch crossover event ahead of time where people can unlock a weapon in both games. It's like a hatchet, like a throwing hatchet kind of thing. And that event was discovered on PC. So I don't know if it necessarily come on the same day, but I'd be kind of amazed if it wasn't there eventually.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, their pattern is to, release a PC version 6 to 12 months later and just have extra sort of bells and whistles on it, and then basically just encourage people to double dip and just buy the game twice. Which makes sense. And that will be awesome. I want to play that game on PC.
Definitely. Should we move on to another new game that we've just seen for the first time?
Is it Doom?
It's Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just wasn't it last time? I think it was last time or the time before when I was just getting really excited about Doom 2016 because I've gone back to it and played it all over again, rediscovered all those weapons. And all the weapons are back and they're the same, but now they've got murderous tools attached to them that let you do just like disgusting things to demons. Just, I don't know, just humiliate them with bizarre close combat attacks. There's like a mid-air dash. There's a grappling hook.
The shotgun has a grappling hook attached to the front of it, which is a fucking
interesting.
incredible idea.
Oh, is that, so that
this.
grappling hook is weapon specific?
It's a shotgun attachment,
So you can't do the grappling.
Well, you see them
unless you've got
switch,
the shotgun
because it's like instant weapon switch, because it's Doom. So you see someone like flying through the air with the rocket launcher, and then switch the shotgun, grapple onto a Caco demon, fling through the air, shotgun it in the face, rip its eyeball out, feed it the eyeball. Oh!
Don't be ridiculous, Alex. You can't attach a grappling hook to a rocket launcher.
That's for jumping.
I like the fleshy chambers, just very fleshy, doomy chambers. It was more like sort of old Doom than Doom 2016 was. Had that
Is this,
sort of
so I completely missed this. Is this like a full sequel or expansion?
full mech sequel on Earth. So it's basically Doom 2.
So on Earth, also maybe
Doom,
in
Hell on
Heaven.
Earth.
That's like the environments they show. They show concept art for what might be Doom's version of Heaven, which is it's a trick Diablo pulled, but
Yeah.
I mean, like talking about different ways of explaining your game. That was just at QuakeCon. It was just on the live stream, and it was just two nice gentlemen from id come out and go, "Hi everybody, are you hype for Doom? Anyway, here's a guy getting dismembered," and it was like, "Whoa!" And I had this. It's maybe slightly reductive to say, but it was weird watching it kind of like same within days of each other with the Red Dead thing. Because the Red Dead thing sort of, I was very sort of like left cold by it, but Doom is regressive in some ways, but it feels like this is just an exultant celebration of the one thing video games are good at.
We got this figured out.
Exactly. That's not that what I just said is extremely reductive, but what I mean is like one thing we really know how to do is fucking shotgun.
Well, that is basically Nail's Rockstar, isn't it? Like, it has basically struggled to do lots of things that games probably aren't that good at, certainly not yet, and
being a film.
Probably not by Rockstar.
Yeah, they showed a lot of the new Doom, actually, like loads of just actual in-game with HUD, just someone with a controller playing it, and then they showed loads of someone with a mouse and keyboard playing it, and it was like, I completely believe that this is what the game is going to be when it's released next year.
Well, it looked so much like Doom 1, with a lot of subtle extras, to make it worth the sequel.
Yeah.
I just feel like Doom 2016 was running at some kind of special frame rates that was higher than what you can normally see. Like, you can normally only see 60 frames, but this one's running at sort of some magical number. Like, it's just so incredibly smooth.
It like gets into your brain in a way. I think maybe something about the rhythm of its combat system where because you're always moving. It's like,
I think they did do some kind of like, not motion blur, but some kind of sort of motion smoothing or interpolation that makes you sort of see between the frames. That's a guess.
Game developer Tom Francis with a post from NeoGAF.
The new,
about how that worked.
The new footage really reminded me almost of Devil May Cry, because it was about like chaining movement together with attacks and switching between weapons all the time, and then just, flipping in midair, grappling over to, a cacodemon, shoot it in the face, and apparently all their flesh just gradually strips off now as you shoot them.
They're like is it destructible demons?
Destructible demons. It's alliteration, and also very descriptive.
Also Dark Souls invasions.
Yes, and so you get to form a posse of
cowboys.
Use the word posse.
That's because we were just talking about cowboys.
Guy from Red Dead just shows up.
It's a haunted box full of cowboys.
It looks like you're going to get to pick a demon and maybe form a team and just invade someone else's game and try and take down Doom Guy, which is a great idea.
Oh, I see, right. Cool.
I mean, they said like immediately afterwards, and you're allowed to switch this off, but like, you can be invaded as you're playing the single player and...
There's loads of
if they have to be the demons, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I don't want another Doom guy popping into my game and shooting me, but...
Yeah, it ruins the immersion.
Yeah.
But
it's just not realistic.
There's loads of smart stuff they've talked about, like, for example, there's like an extra live system that's designed to replace checkpointing in a way. Not replace, but there's still checkpointing. But it's designed to remove the friction that checkpointing can create if you're trying to beat a hard area over and over again. So you'll earn extra lives as you progress through the game at basically soft checkpoints, and then that will give you an extra life to get through an area. And that's also designed to soften the invasion mechanic. So if you get ganged up on by a load of human-controlled demons, you've got an extra life there to basically, you get killed, they get their points, but then you come right back into the fight straight away, and you keep on going with the extra life that you've been given by the game. Which sounds like a really smart kind of smoothing idea. Like, I think it's fucking smart designers behind that Doom game.
They even didn't lose me when they said, and we are expanding this into the Doom universe with more lore.
Right, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Heavily
There's a
inspired.
surprising amount of lore in Doom.
They even said,
2016.
inspired by Dark Souls.
Yeah, they did say that. But what I was encouraged by that, not by the lore aspect. Like, if they want to put it in cards and put it in a grimoire on a website somewhere, that's great, whatever you want to do. But the idea that you get to go to a place with a slightly different colour palette would be lovely after Doom 2016, which is exactly all the same colours.
It'll be grey and red. You can have red and grey or grey and red.
I'll take any sort of variation on the.
Oh man, I'm excited for every part of it. Like,
it's gonna
just
be
the soundtrack's crazy is from what they've done, and
it's cool.
I just like that. I know I'll finish that game. I think that's the thing. It was like looking at it and going, "Yeah, I'm playing all of this."
Amazing.
That's the one, Doom 2016 was the one game where, I played with a controller, and, I know that, like, controller's not as good as mouse and keyboard for most things, but for almost everything else, controller just works for me. I'm just fine with it. I just muddle through. That was the one game I truly didn't like it until I tried the mouse and keyboard, and okay, this is it.
They even did that. I've never seen a developer ever do that at QuakeCon, but they literally, the first demo was like 6 to 10 minutes of the game on a pad, and it looked good.
Yeah.
And then they went, "Do you want to see this with the mouse and keyboard?"
Crazy
And then it was
well.
like 4 times faster.
Yeah,
it was like
insane.
watching it in fast forward, and it was like, "Oh shit!"
Because it's all about finesse, and if you're not pulling that off, there is no pleasure to it, really.
Well, I mean, I think there's a case to be made for pad controller shooters as well. It depends on the type of shooter, but pad gives you more sense of your physicality.
Yeah.
Like, if you, a mouse and keyboard,
Yeah.
you are a super quick camera on tank tracks, and that's how it feels. I'm not to say that walking feels like pushing an analog stick, but there's something more analog about it, obviously, less digital. And so I like, BioShock, I always like playing with pad, because you kind of want to do the slow looking of a man going, "Wow, look at this." It's candy floss in a bin. You know what I mean, though?
Yeah.
Whereas
Don't
Doom
want
is
that
like, I don't care.
Well, especially since modern games like to do a bit of camera animation to kind of, to sort of, wrest your visual control away from you to make sure you're looking at the right thing, or to give a sense of body. And that feels horrible with a mouse.
Yeah.
Or it's impossible.
Crash zoom on a big door. Yeah. It's a big man, he's got a shield. Wait for him to charge you, then shoot him in the back.
At the end of the Doom trailer, they showed the Doom lightsaber, basically.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, there's basically just, a super demon comes out, and apparently it's one of the old demons from the old games. And, it's in a completely dark room, and he lights a ring of fire around him. And the Doom guy pulls out, like, the hilt of something, and then it cracks open, and a giant red blade comes out with, like, demonic writing all over it.
It's very good.
It's like, I'm
Was it a
fucking into this.
sort of tallish, flamey guy?
Yeah.
It was.
Narrow it down.
Revenant.
Yeah. No, the reference from the first one is a super demon, I think.
Okay.
Because they were saying, like, new to the series, and I'm pretty sure everyone.
Super demon.
Yeah.
We've never had a super demon
Apparently.
before. Mega demon, sure. Ultra demons, yes, but
Apparently it resurrects other demons, but that's just more ammo, as far as...
Revenant.
Revenant's
No, hang on. Revenant's the skeletal guy with the jump pack.
It is.
no, I know what you
Yeah,
mean. Like the
Archville.
brown ones.
Archville.
Archvile, that's right.
Archville.
Archville, I think, is where Archie is set.
Yeah.
They do like the star jump pose
Yeah.
and set light to you, I think.
Yeah, it's the Archvile.
They do calisthenics.
Archvile.
Yeah.
It is the Archvile.
Yeah. Yes, you've
But
got
now there's a super vial.
Yeah, and that level, I love the bit in that level. So that level's like you're fighting across the surface of a space station, like around Phobos. It's very Destiny, actually, that map. But the orbital, like the defense cannon on the space station is the BFG 10,000, which is like a BFG the size of like a space station, basically. And every time it fires, the entire level goes green and shakes, which is
What if the demon's got control of that?
no,
Alex, it's too horrible to consider.
It is literally the biggest
never let that
Chekhov's
happen.
gun. It is. You have to fire it. You have to become a very big Doom Marine and pick it up. If that doesn't happen, this game is fucking garbage.
You've only got to be 10% bigger to fire the 10,000 versus the 9,000.
There's also like they're not fully trying to do story, but like it's the first time we've shown like alive humans in a Doom game, I think. So he walks through like the command center, which is sealed off. And there's people going like, you can't be in here, and seeing that it's a Doom Marine and going like, oh, you're so tall. And then there's a guy who's like, you need the red key card to get through this door. And he grabs him by the lanyard because the red key card's still on his lanyard.
I did see this.
And then like drags him on his wheelie chair to the door and beeps it open, which is very good. Like,
it's very, very
it does feel like, it feels like this is the game that Duke Nukem should have became. Like, I mean, obviously the same era, but like, they missed such a trick with Duke Nukem Forever and its level of silly versus bombast.
There's a lot. They don't have all that stuff to diffuse about Nukem with Doom Guy. Like Doom Guy is just like kind of a comedy totem, and you could really play on that in the modern era without having to, redo Duke Nukem in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's true. I really want them to do this. I mean, I'm very happy they're doing New Doom. I'd really love them to do this with Quake. Like, as in Quake 1 era kind of strange, like industrial, medieval, Lovecraftian thing.
Yeah. It takes a few tries to reboot a thing, doesn't it? Cause like Wolfenstein, they rebooted it so many times that there's a whole Wolfenstein reboot I just forgot about for like 5 years.
Yeah. Which is like in canon with the new ones, weirdly.
Really?
It's like, it is like,
So Return to Castle Wolfenstein.
Yes.
No, so I remembered that, and I remembered the New Blood and the Old Order or whatever. But there's one in between where it's like the sort of the cyan supernatural zombie one.
Yeah, that one. That is the one. That is the one that is the first game in the.
It's by Raven, right?
Yes, that game is in canon with the new one.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. It's because loads of the characters are in it. Like a lady who's in a wheelchair in the New Order is your handler in that game.
Oh.
Like, it's the blue Wolfenstein where you have magic powers.
And then
it's
I don't know
basically
how many Quakes there have been, because I remember playing Quake 4. Was there a Quake 5 or anything after that?
There's Quake Champions, which is the free one.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a Quake.
What about the one
another single player Quake after?
Splash Damage did?
Quake. Quake Enemy Territory.
Yeah, Enemy Territory.
Yeah, that was basically Wolfenstein Enemy Territory.
Enemy Territory and Quake Wars.
Enemy, that's quite right, yeah.
That didn't have a single player bit, did it?
No.
It was just multiplayer.
But like, and also like Quake, got one game in before becoming a sci-fi thing, which it then stayed as.
Yeah, it's a very weird series.
Like
and then Quake 3 was multiplayer only, so.
Yeah.
It's as if they didn't really have a story.
Like, it's not a story necessarily, but like, I want Quake 1 aesthetic, because it's so strange. Like Quake 1, I think
is. And the sound effects, everything about it is really kind of red.
Like the rocket launcher, which sounds like a kind of distorted t-shirt cannon.
Yeah.
They just had reading about
and then it sort of the bouncing goes ktung, ktung.
Yeah, like,
that's the grenade launcher, right?
Grenade launcher.
Yeah. And the nail gun sort of like a little train. Yeah.
Lovely.
And the kind of pathetic lightning guns kind of
like a little miniature Emperor Palpatine going Welcome to this Quake ASMR experience.
Can anyone do the jib noise?
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. I feel like we need to do this as a series because we should get to the Half-Life that button doesn't work noise.
Bang. Can anyone do the medical noise in Half-Life when you like? No, they're like the things on the walls where you press and hold U's and
that's what I was trying to do, but I decided. Oh, that one. That's the suit recharger.
It sounds like it's about to say something, but then I don't know.
Yeah, that's the suit recharger. I was thinking of. I think.
Oh my god, you're so fucked up. I need to get you back on track.
Oh god, I wish it did. Oh my god, that's a lot of damage. I'm in very bad trouble. I'm afraid. I think I've fixed you now, done.
And the strange reverb on all the explosions in that game.
Yeah.
So every explosion sounds like wang.
Wang. I think I harangued you about it not that long ago. But I was playing new maps of Quake a few weeks ago. Oh, yeah? It's so good.
Really?
And basically the developers of them are using a kind of a framework that allows the levels to be way bigger than Quake was ever designed to support. So they are vast, huge, sprawling things. Like really, because it was really good at those kind of towering kind of sort of cathedrals and castles. But then when you make a really big level that kind of spans all the way through them and it has kind of like basements and great big sort of lofty bits. And it's so good. So
Basements and lofts.
Loft. Who'd like to play in a loft?
It sounds like
everyone.
I read a bit about the making of Quake and the dissonance between the sort of sci-fi elements and the fantasy elements, where it sounds like it was mostly just like, well, this guy wants it to be a sci-fi game, this guy wants it to be a fantasy game. You do your chapter, and that can all be sci-fi. I'll do my chapter. I want to make a fucking castle. I'm just going to make castles until someone tells me to stop.
And the artist, meanwhile, is doing their own thing as well.
It's true. It's Unreal as well. Remember, the Unreal kind of default screen before you press start or whatever, spacebar, it just flew around a castle.
Yeah.
Like it was like a big tech demo. It was like, oh my god, look at the coloured lighting we could do, and we could swoop through under a bridge. There's water here. Wow, look at the reflections.
Honestly, it was amazing.
At the
first
time,
time I saw it, like it was in like Game or whatever Game was, or maybe Electronic Boutique, or it was then in Manchester, right at the end of my degree. Like I just finished exams, and I was like, I went into the shop and oh my,
I've got an Unreal story. From my childhood when I was at secondary school, and me and my friend, like, super into games, we were buying PC Gamer, we bought a copy of PC Gamer, and it had Unreal in it, and they were showing off the graphics and how incredible they were, and wow, I mean, they're laughable now, but, you know, the 3D models at the time were incredible, and coloured lighting was a big deal, and like fog and stuff like that. And we were showing them, going, wow, that's amazing, that's so cool. And then later in the day, you know, like, well, just kind of meeting our form teachers or whatever, someone came and said I had to go see the head teacher immediately, and I was shitting myself, so what the fuck? I'm just getting on with my life. And then I went there, and he said, we've had reports that you were looking at pornography on the train.
Because of your response to it.
Someone
oh my god!
Someone else on the train had seen our reactions to those Unreal screenshots as we were passing a copy of PC Gamer visibly between our seats across the train. And they decided, because they recognised our uniforms, which had like the school crest on and shit, and they decided to call the headmaster.
Holy shit!
That, you know, we've been reading porn, showing porn to each other.
That stand for Porn Connoisseur Gamer.
Exactly. And I was like, so you don't need to worry about this.
Did you like open, surely at that point you opened.
And then he's going, whoa, crikey.
Look at
Get
that
out of my
coloured
office and leave that.
Look at the polygons.
He's putting the install disc into his PC.
So to speak.
I think, like, those days were weird fictionally and thematically because the games that were successful were the ones where some tech genius invented some incredible engine, and basically Tim Sweeney and John Carmack. And that was what determined a game being successful, and it didn't really matter if everyone else kind of just did something random on top of it. Whereas these days, I think you have to have a much more cohesive artistic vision because there is no tech you can do that's really going to set you ahead. Like the Red Dead Redemption's vistas are great, but they're not really anything I haven't seen before. There are already incredible open world games.
If you'd seen that 10 years ago, you might be sort of Jaws, you know.
But even then, it's almost like there's like an equivalence. It's not like, I get what you're saying, Tom, because it's not like a kind of epochal shift in what you can expect a game to look like.
Yeah.
Like Red Dead Redemption 1 was a lovely looking game. I know what hills look like.
Yeah.
I can imagine a point in a continuum between those two things. And that's where Red Dead Redemption 2 is.
Yeah.
Like, if you know what I mean. Like, it's very rare now that something comes along and you're like, holy shit, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Tom, I think you had some other news. Is that correct?
Two small indie game things. Flotilla 2 will be out the same day as this podcast.
Is that still all VR?
Yes, it is a VR-only follow-up to Flotilla, which is by Blendo Games, who did Gravity Bone and 30 Flights of Loving and Atom Zombie Smasher and Quadrilateral Cowboy. And Flotilla is the 3D space strategy turn-based game, and it's obviously a very good fit for like room-scale VR because you just get to see your spaceships floating in the room. I played it a few times. I haven't got very far with it yet, so I can't really talk about it in any qualitative way, but it is very, very cool to see your ships hanging in space and you just kind of like grab them and then kind of move them to where you want them to be. And of course you can kind of angle your hand to kind of have them point in the direction you want them to point. And because it's Brendan Chung, all of the in-fiction tech you're using is incredibly clunky and like old-fashioned, and you start in like this weird test room with just a computer on a desk and a bunch of cartridges. To play any level, you have to physically pick up a cartridge and jam it into the slot, and then physically pick up a headset and put it on your head, even though you're already wearing a VR headset.
Superhot works that way as well.
Right.
I think you put discs in the machine.
And then when you're controlling your ships, you have these really like very clunky, boxy controllers with just like big yellow button on them. And to activate a special ability, you have to sort of put an extra cartridge on top of your controller, and then that button controls that, and then you unplug it again if you don't want to use that ability anymore. Cool. Yeah. So like nothing is UI, everything is physical. And that's very cool.
That's really fits.
And the other thing is Human Resource Machine. There is a follow-up to that called 7 Billion Humans, or 7 Billion People. I can't remember which is this was the kind of pseudo-programming game by the creators of, well, one of the creators of World of Goo, and Little Inferno. And this, I've watched the trailer and I couldn't, so from the title, I didn't know it was a Human Resource Machine follow-up, and so I watched the trailer and thought, this just seems like Human Resource Machine, but with more people. And I guess it is just that, because it's a follow-up to that game.
7 billion.
Yep. It has a theme of like, the whole world is watching some kind of exercise video. Like, it's, Human Resource Machine was about programming office workers. It was about like the sort of equivalence between office workers who just follow orders and computers that just run a program. And this seems to be like, I guess you're controlling the whole world and maybe making exercise programs to get them to do what you want. But it involves basically coding. Human Resource Machine, I had a little bit of trouble with, in that it was a game where you do programming, but it simplifies it and makes it very physical and understandable. But then it doesn't feature any of the conveniences of coding, but it does feature eventually a lot of the complexity of coding. And so you had to just make these, like, the tasks you're trying to accomplish are not actually that difficult when you're writing real lines of code, but when you're using this simplified interface, it becomes incredibly complex and very difficult to read what you've written and very hard to track. And so it ended up being sort of like harder than real programming, which was a bad feature. Hopefully it would be nice if they addressed that somehow.
Cool. We should talk about what we've been playing.
I got a game that kind of fits quite nicely.
Very well then.
Oh, yeah.
Dovetail.
Because I've been playing Exapunks, which is the latest Zach Barth.
Is it Exapunks or Exapunks?
Exapunks, that's right.
Because I think, I'm guessing it's a reference to like, it doesn't go like Giga Exa.
Oh, maybe.
Or Giga Terra Exa. I think Exa is the one after Terra, maybe.
Or Gigapunks. Gigapunks.
Last one I played was Micropunks, and I'm way behind.
When you start it up, it's really good. Like, it kind of has this thing, and it goes, Exapunks. And then it starts with this like synth music. And it's really sort of like, oh, I'm right into the cyber world now. This is so good.
That's what I want to be saying every time I fire up any game. I'm right into this cyber world now.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Right into the cyber world.
I'm right into
Actually,
this cyber world.
Well, Resident Evil like started with a Resident Evil. Like, basically, all games should start with a like narratively sort of appropriate
I feel like
reading.
I get what you're saying
because
it's like the Resident Evil thing,
Resident
right? But the way you said it made it sound like it was being shouted by the B-52s.
So,
papers, please.
Gone home.
That's my moment as well. Tom, if you had to record this for your own games, what would the tone be?
I don't know.
Excellent question.
gun point.
Yeah, question
I
mark.
can't think of a funny way to say those names.
Tactical Breach Wizards!
Well, Tactical Breach Wizards, we might legitimately say it. Like, that actually fits, I think.
Yeah.
With like, smashing noises or drum beats or something. Tactical Breach Wizards.
Yeah, the metal version, I like it.
Exapunks.
Got as far as the name.
Is so like if you played a Zach Barth it is definitely one of those which is where you're creating systems to carry out certain level requirements. You're fundamentally programming, and in this one you really are programming. Because in some previous ones it's been much more spatial or mechanical. Like so, the last one
alternates, right?
Kind of, yeah, yeah.
Because spatial programming.
Yeah, so we had the last one was it was Magnum, which is marvelous and talked about quite a lot.
And sort of spatial, I would argue.
Yeah.
Very much so, yeah.
And
That's
then
very mechanical.
Before that was
Shenzhen
IO programming. Before
When
that was
was-
Infinifactory, spatial.
Where did TI 100 fit into that?
That was actually in between I think that was after Shenzhen or maybe before Shenzhen. So
Oh, no.
Yeah, I feel like that was just before.
but Shenzhen
this-
is weird. It's kind of not fully programming. There's definitely sort of weird spatially things going on.
It has a solitaire game in it, and that's good.
We don't have to attempt to reconcile my dumb theory. We need to get past Exapunks' main menu screen.
So I'd say the Exapunks sits quite close to TIS 100. TIS 100 was a kind of like a semi-simulation of how chips work. So you're doing sort of operations on a chip to do certain calculations, basically. In this one, you are programming little... Well, this is kind of where I kind of stumbled when I first started playing it. It visualizes what you're doing. Basically, you're hacking in a sort of cyberpunk sort of world. And it visualizes it as you having these little bots, and they look like little four-legged, like drone bot things. And you see them in this kind of on the squares of these, what are basically servers and sort of computers and stuff, that you're hacking into. And it looks at the start, because they're actually on squares in these things, it looks like you're moving them from square to square, and like it's a very kind of sort of moving things around for them to do things and manipulate things. But actually you're writing code for them, and you're just telling them move to an area, and they will just find whatever you need them to. Which is kind of like, I found that a bit of a stumbling block to start with. Like some of the thematic sort of metaphoring seemed a bit odd, but I'm now fully into it. I have hacked into a bakery to remove
That's not where I thought I was going to go.
From all of their donut recipes.
So it's just dough.
I have
I just got that. That's very good.
In order to get a zine published, I've removed the
Mag.
What something. I've hacked into the account system, so the guy, the person who wants to publish them, doesn't owe any money anymore. And basically, you're manipulating information in this one. You're hacking into places to fuck around with information, and that means finding files, finding certain information in those files and mucking around with it, changing it, adapting it. And for each of the levels, you have to do the same operation, run it 100 times, but with different data, to ensure that your program works.
I heard somebody... Sorry.
Go on.
I heard somebody saying that it's... my friend Asher actually was saying that it's competitive programming. Like you can test your programs against other people's in some way.
See, I don't know whether you're able to download it or not. I haven't seen that function, but it's basically got Opus Magnum's histograms.
Right.
So you have this horrific thing where you've written this code and you kind of, this cannot be bettered. Not that I'm any good, but I cannot see any way of doing this better. And then you see somebody who's done it in half the number of cycles, which is the number of, sort of times, like number of sort of, I guess steps it takes to carry out an operation, or there's size, which is the number of lines of code you've written. The code is very simple to write, and that's why I thought that it was quite simple, similar maybe to the way you were describing
7 billion humans or human resource machine.
Because all of the code, and this is where it's quite similar to TIS 100, is that every bit of code is a 4-letter kind of function, and then kind of the variables. So in order to read a file, you move your drone to it by typing in link and then the address of the doorway into it. Then you type grab and then the numerical code for that file. And then you copy, and then choose the memory register you want to put it into.
Yeah, that's
so
a lot
it's
like
really
how
simple.
human resource machine works as well.
And so it means it's really fucking painful to do things like, and this is where the puzzling is, like, but in this, it's fun. This is where the challenge is. So I had a situation where, I was asked to rewrite, roadside signs, the lit up signs on the side of roads with a set of numerical, like basically like a bunch of numbers, which each of the numbers corresponds to a letter of the alphabet. And I had to write a piece of code which which in turn kind of wrote a different letter to a different point on there in the right order, so it read right. And that meant setting up all these little counters for the code to make sure I knew when it had reached the end of a line, had to start into a new line, and then did that twice for the 3 lines. And there was never enough memory registers to put the counters into because of various ways that the memory works, which, like, you know, I am not a programmer. I am not all that bright. And I just found it total catnip. It's just so fun.
Really?
Like, it's really painful. Like, stuff doesn't work. But it's like fun.
It's mixed signals.
It's proper puzzling where you can see exactly what the problem is. And you know that it's been designed around this problem. This problem is obviously all about how the fuck do you count up stuff when you don't have the stuff available.
Because I am a programmer, and I don't have to deal with memory really.
No.
Like, I know it exists, and I could hit a limit one day, but I never have. So I just don't have to think about it.
Because you're writing, basically in these games, you're writing to silicon. That's like, it's like you're doing you're doing machine code. And that's what it's sort of all trading on. And like, it's just really fun. The presentation is just glorious. Like, Zach Barth, like, I don't think he has artists that work with him, but he has a sensitivity in directing that art, in making it absolutely appropriate to it's what it's focused on. So Shenzhen IO is like sort of beautifully sort of redolent of kind of, sort of
Windows 3.1.
electronic machines, and Windows 3.1 and TIS 100 is just everything's in just characters, and it's black and white on characters because it's simple computers.
Maybe the real creative genius at Zachtronics is an artist we've never heard of who just comes up with these amazing art styles and beautiful aesthetics, and Zach just plugs the same game into them each time.
So someone's sort of like, this beautiful kind of alchemy punk stuff in Albus Magnum as well. But and there's loads of it that, like, he's really interested in styles as well. So you get loads of logos of donut shops and like very specific sort of signage. And there is so this, like Shenzhen IO, in order to know how to play, you have to basically, there's a zine that comes as a PDF.
Gotta read the zine.
And I haven't printed it out, but basically you're meant to print it out. But I was just tabbing out to it.
Like that famous acronym, RTFZ. Read the fucking zine.
And like, it's beautifully done. And like, they use the right fonts for a sort of certain 80s style of kind of electronic sort of publications.
I believe you're too late if you want to order the physical version, right? They had
that's
a limited
right.
run of like, you get posted the enormous printed
convenient,
zine.
to be frank, but like, the attention to detail is just lovely. And there's a story stuff in there as well, which Opus Magnum sort of first started to explore. So they're like, in this story, you have some sort of cyber disease and all your like nerves are fucking up or something. And being Cyberland, the meds that you need are prohibitively expensive. And it illustrates this by, so you get your job, and this job that, you have to spend like $700 a day on your meds, and you have to do this job of transcribing somebody's receipt. So there's someone's receipt, and you have to type in all of the things they bought and the amounts just into boxes on this screen, and you get paid 25 cents for it, and you go, oh dear, is this the game? And then
this isn't going to scale.
Then the hacking starts. But yeah, it's really, I absolutely loved it, loving it. I will probably hit the brick wall quite soon.
I always do.
Yeah, like, and I'm glad Tom isn't playing it now, because I'd be getting obsessed over his better histograms.
So I might mention this when we talk about Opus Magnum, but my friend Kevin of the Video Games Hot Dog podcast could be relied upon to have found the actual optimum score for every metric on every puzzle. And so it was actually kind of handy to have that information, because if you could just see, I can do better on that, but I don't have to, because I know his score is the insane optimum, and it will take me hours and hours to ever get there. So I didn't feel bad about him beating me, but at the same time I knew when there was room to improve and when there wasn't. If you match Kevin's score, it's like, oh great, I'm done.
I'm the best.
There can be no better possible score.
I'm happy to be stupid. I know I wasn't happy. So the one with hacking into the printer's account system, like it's actually, that was the sign one. I couldn't figure out a way to do the counting, so I did a hard-coded, like, now we're moving on to a different set, and now another different set. It was bad. It was really ugly. And I just I don't know, I quite enjoyed the fact that I was proud about it. Like I was proud. I was enjoying the fact that I'd sort of, maybe I can figure out a way, but not enough fucking registers, man.
That feeling of like, I know I'm doing this the wrong way, but I know this way will work. I can't be fucked to figure out the hard way. That's my life.
Yeah. But there was this moment of release. You sort of like relief. You sort of like, oh, I'm going to do it. And I've done it. And I just tested the first, like, oh, it works. And like, I'm just going to do this. Oh, I feel dirty, but it's fun.
I remember like an Infinifactory solution that I finally finished the thing I was really stuck on, and it worked perfectly, except the fact that it would just assemble a bench. I didn't want it didn't need to assemble a bench, but like my wood leftovers just made a bench, and it would just vomit it into space. And like, so the machine just like output pointless benches in a particular direction forever, and I had to try and position, you could get like the GIF camera, so you couldn't see that that's what it was doing. Like that just would obviously not.
Let's not look at the benches.
Yeah.
There was one other thing I was going to say, where there was this magical moment as well where this is quite early on, and it's not surprising at all that this actually happened, really, especially to anyone that's programming. But you get given this sort of instruction, and you have a bunch of code, like, and you know the instructions because you read them in the zine, and there's a bunch of them, and they only have lines, and there was no tutorial. So everything you've done in that, I figured out for myself, and over an embarrassing long period of time, I figured out how to do this thing, and I wrote it. And then, right at the very end, I just couldn't figure out why it wasn't triggering the kind of like the complete thing. I just didn't know why it wasn't working. And so I looked, on YouTube, and someone had solved it. And I realized that there's one little thing that I just didn't quite understand about the game, and, fixed it. It was this really minor thing. And I looked at our code, and other than the one number that didn't marry it is, our lines of code were identical. And like, it's this amazing thing that we'd both followed the same puzzle in the same game, but I felt that I'd learned everything for myself. And like
really cool.
Meeting of two minds that, I don't know where this person lives. It wasn't narrated at all, but like, holy shit, sort of, there was a sort of oneness with humanity moment. It was a Saturday morning, and my children were banging around at the same time.
You became one with the machine and also humanity.
It wasn't exactly kind of late night kind of dreamy time, but yeah. Anyway, good game.
Nice.
Tom, senior.
I've been playing Warframe. I played this game many years ago when it first entered early access, and it was terrible. It's real bad. It was a third-person action game, still is, where you play as a kind of sexy space ninja from the future.
Weird organic ninja.
Yeah, so the art side of Warframe, like, I feel compelled to talk about this first, because it's such a strange game. And, okay, let's just actually give some context. So it's kind of a living game, a bit like Destiny or something like that, where you're encouraged to log in every day and do a little bit more towards your character. It's got EVE-style kind of crafting. So in EVE Online, when you start a skill training, it takes actual real life time to happen. That could be days, could be a week. And that's how crafting works in Warframe. You get all your stuff, and then you kind of pick your new stuff up each day as you kind of log back in and do your little quests. And it's about incremental progress across a series of 5-minute missions that you dash in and dash out of and complete with the maximum efficiency as you level up different Warframes and craft new things. And it's utterly compulsive now. When I first played it, it was a bag of shite. Truly terrible. Like, it was, the shooting felt crap. The melee felt just like really sloppy and weird. The movement was way too fast for the small areas that it was in. It was like set in a series of tiny dungeons that you'd complete in 5 minutes, when you get some arbitrary currency, and then you wouldn't know how to spend it. And a lot of that stuff is still kind of true of Warframe, but over the course of many years, like, it's been expanded in such odd ways that it is now incredibly hard to put down.
Isn't there like there's an open world bit?
Exactly.
Isn't there space combat and
stuff
as well?
Yeah. So it's been expanded, and there's just layers and layers of updates, and they're not pointing in one direction. They're all just like pointing in just random directions. Like this update added an open world bit, which is like 5 kilometers square, and you take bounties in this place, and you go out into this wilderness and you kill stuff, and then you level up with and gain reputation with this particular person. And then another update, just not too far away, would suddenly add like space combat, where you're given space wings and you can go outside of your spaceship, and you have to do stuff like almost like a, Death Star runs, where you have to get to these transports on the other side of this floating facility before the transports escape and blow them up. And doing that involves like, dashing through tiny space corridors, doing quick flips and turns, and it's an incredibly mobile game. And there's the default way of moving around in Warframe with your main character, even on foot, is a crouch slide into a dash, into a double jump, into a somersaulting crouch that then chains back into the double jump. And what you see, people who've been playing Warframe a long time, there's almost like just moving around is a whole sort of esoteric technique in and of itself, which I've now learned and kind of feel like I've mastered, and turning corners and going through these, these weird space station mazes becomes a kind of skill in and of itself. How fast can you flow in and out of it as you're spinning and spiraling and somersaulting through them? And you only ever want to kill stuff when the objectives demand that you do. So some of them are just, I'll take a combat build, and I'll go in there with my fucking beautiful shotgun and my cyber ninja swords, and I'll chop everything up. But a lot of them are just like capture missions where the guy's marked on your map by a objective marker that flips to the doorway that you need to flip through, and it's just this kind of really satisfying game of somersaulting through doorways and then killing this guy like in 5 seconds flat with your amazing weapons.
Wait, weren't you supposed to capture him?
What you do is you shoot him until his health is all gone. Then they lie on the floor, and then you dissolve them into your wristwatch.
What?
And then and as you hear them screaming while this happens, by the way. Like all these particle effects, like spiraling particle effects just go into your watch, and suddenly they're caught. That's it. Mission done.
Well, because you're actually meant to be in a cyber suit. You're kind of, you're in a robot, aren't you?
You're in a Warframe.
Is that what it says when you start up the game? You're in a Warframe.
The Warframes are really different. So each one comes with a bunch of special abilities, and you can attach mods completely differently, and they behave very differently in the game. They're very good at different, different weapons work differently with them. And it's, I can't stop playing it. It's horrendous. It's because each mission is 5 fucking seconds long, and you get something for it, and you dash in and dash out, and it's like, yeah, you've got this, Tenho, well done. And it's like, oh, that felt good.
What do you get for it? Just like some experience points, or?
You also get loads of materials, and occasionally you'll drop, like blueprints for stuff that you can craft. And especially if they're Warframe blueprints, that's like a massive deal, because when
you're in a Warframe!
And when you slip yourself into a new Warframe, your ability shifts so much. And also all the leveling is tied to leveling up individual items. Nothing works conventionally in Warframe. Everything is just a bit wrong and weird. So you don't just level up by killing stuff. You have to have loads, ideally all the stuff you're wearing will be new, or need to be leveled up to 30. And whenever one of those things ticks over a level, you get 100 points, basically, just progression points. If your Warframe ticks up, you get 200 progression points. So if you have a new Warframe, you're obviously making bank every time you level up with that particular Warframe.
So it encourages you to try new Warframes.
Yeah, to collect. Keep on building new things, keep on building new weapons. And the weapons are actually really different. So you can have, I'm currently wielding something called the Boltor, which shoots bolts. You'd never guess. And when you kill a dude with this, like, they go flying backwards, and if it can pin them to a wall, it will. And as far as I know, that's the only game that does that. That's the only weapon that does that in this game, apart from perhaps some bows, because you can also wield bows that are like slow fire, massive damage, especially if you get headshots. Like there's the melee weapons. I started out with like basically a short katana, and now I've got an enormous hammer that does like loads of AoE effects. And actually, the weapons are really different and really kind of interesting. And because you're encouraged to install these new weapons, you're encouraged to, because that's how all the leveling works, you're constantly shifting, constantly crafting, and it's basically treadmills within treadmills within treadmills, the game, and I can completely understand how people have been captivated by it, even though it's one of the oddest games I've
it has
ever
a really
played.
Weird history as well. So like, so it's interesting we were talking about Unreal before, because Steve Sinclair, I think it is, who founded Digital Eclipse, the developer, was one of the Digital Extremes. Yeah,
right.
Was basically started developing Unreal and basically led the original Unreal. But then they did a load of work for hire stuff and a lot of fairly dodgy games, and they were on the brink of going under because a deal fell through on a game. And so they had this idea and they spent a few months making it and put it out on their own website. And that's why it was rubbish. It was basically, it was made by a small team. Basically, this was the last kind of chance for the studio. And you can kind of see some of Unreal's kind of like world building in there as well. Like where it's like, oh, it's sci-fi. It'll do.
Yeah, it's so strange. Yeah, to describe it's so hard to describe its kind of aesthetic and what it's so hard to decide what it's trying to go for. It's almost like Farscape with a bit of Lex, if anyone knows what that is, via Existenz. Like it's fucking weird. Like it's all this kind of bionic. Everything looks like a sex thing. In this game. Like it's this kind of skin tight fetish.
Everything is ribbed
stuff. Everything is
ribbed for your pleasure.
And everything's kind of just clamped to the body, and the body is always just this kind of, but weirdly organic technology that kind of, I don't know, it's hard to describe. What I'm saying is that I've just been shooting stuff and getting just weirdly horny for the entire duration.
So it was strange. I think I maybe talked about it, this particular issue, but like Warframe's weirdness and its speed and its default FOV meant that when I first started playing it, I like almost threw up, and I don't get motion sick in games. Like there's something like powerfully strange about it. Like,
for sure.
Kind of like almost like a cursed image kind of thing. So, and then, but like I found the right, I had to go on the forums and go like, you switch off these effects and this head bob and stuff. And now it doesn't make me want to throw up. And then you can appreciate that, like, oh, but it's weird beyond that as well. It wasn't
really
like, cause it almost acted as a sort of like it made it impossible to see how weird it was initially, because I was like, this whole thing makes me feel sick. And then that was just certain things about the way it moves, turned that off. And then I was like, oh, but all the men I'm killing are like, they look like the Koopa Troopers from the live action Mario movie.
Right, yeah.
Like, why are they here?
It's fucking body horror, weird kind of shit, yeah. These sort of robot men who are in tortoise bodies, and that's like the Grineer.
Yeah, and you're like a sort of lithe, like a kind of like hyper gimp.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it really is like, oh, well done, you've leveled up your dominatrix, space dominatrix, to level 3.
Yeah, but this particular variant of that concept as well, because it's hardly, there's only one. Like,
yeah, every fetish is accounted for.
Yeah.
It does feel like, I'm in someone else's sex world. It's really weird. I can't shake that feeling. And I can't stop playing, but I can't stop being, I was like so slightly uncomfortable with it at the same time. It's really hard to describe.
It is, yeah.
Like even the weapons and stuff, they're so weird. And they've all got just strange names.
And then you're going to places that are like relatively conventional in some ways. It's like, I'm in a factory. Or like here's a forest or an icy sci-fi facility or something. It's not like the environment. Some of them are weird, but none of them is like as weird as the people you are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then I take a mission and it's like, oh, you'll get an egg out of this. I'm like, okay. And so I do the mission and I got my egg, and it's like, oh, okay, I craft a thing to unlock the egg, and then a dog comes out. And now the dog just wanders around my spaceship. But I had to do some missions for the dog to grow up. Now the dog's grown up, the dog comes with me on missions, and it attacks people and fucking rips their throat out just while I'm shooting dudes. And because of just the weird, sort of slightly shonky way this game works.
Dog egg.
The dog that came from the egg, has one animation for ripping dudes' throats out, and what it does is it stands on its hind legs and it rests its paws on the enemy's shoulders, and then it bites their neck until it's done enough damage, and then they fall over. But what if the enemy is bigger than the dog? What? Because there are lots of enemies of different heights in this video game. So what then? Oh, we need to solve this problem. Oh, the dog just grows in size to match whatever it's trying to kill. So if there's like a 12-foot tall boss,
as the Doom Marine will need.
And I noticed this the first time in this already surreal game that's kind of just very strange and slightly disconcerting to play. Even though I'm just completely addicted to it and quite enjoying it. Just turning around and seeing my dog suddenly 12 foot tall, trying to take down an enormous fucking slimy tentacle monster. It's like, why is it so big? And then until I realised, obviously, this is just an animation thing that happens.
It's somebody you don't know sex dream.
Yeah, well, the thing, like, it is definitely like, it does feel like that kind of like acid trip 80s comic book sci-fi, where it's just like, this is...
It belongs on Channel 5, you know.
Yeah.
This game belongs on Channel 5. And for anyone outside of Britain, what Channel 5 is, it was basically, before the internet existed for a bit, was where soft porn lived. And stuff like Lex, for example, used to get shown, which is an old kind of lo-fi science fiction series, which with very strange like ideas and a very low budget. And I don't know, there's a bit of Warframe in there. It's so unique. There's nothing like it. Nothing works how a game should work. Like leveling up doesn't work that way. There you can earn credit with factions. So there are factions in this game. You can earn experience with them, but there are like 8 factions, and they have different relationships with one another. And if you gain relation with one, another one hates you, but another one sort of likes you. And so you're trying to balance. So how many people can I please at the same time with this absurd faction system? I had to go online and they're like, there are 3 optimal ways that you can please only 4 factions using this system. And you have to do this point at this particular point. As soon as they start to like you, you need to quit and go and like, it doesn't work like any other faction system where you just like, in World of Warcraft, you just gain your reputation with the thing and they give you the loot. Not in this game. Everything is overcomplicated.
I feel like it's from a different dimension, doesn't it?
It's crazy. It's so crazy. But I completely understand why people are into it, because it's like, so dense, it sucks you in, and it encourages a kind of online community around this game, just people explaining it to each other, basically.
What the fuck is going on?
Like, why is there a dog in my egg?
This is why you're feeling these strange feelings, and it's perfectly natural. All you need to do is grind for Boltor, get your Boltor.
Grind for Boltor. Just close your eyes and grind for Boltor.
Close your eyes. It's oh god. So I'm a babe in this universe, this fucking weird universe I've gone into. I only started playing it on Saturday, and I'm already so deep into it. And I blame my PC Gamer compatriot Stephen Messner, who's been playing it for ages and did a very good kind of introduction article about it, which frankly I don't know how the fuck you get into it without any sort of explainer like that. But it's also incredibly generous. Like you could play so much of it without ever having to put money into it. And I've played it for 10 hours and never felt the urge to put any money in whatsoever.
It's free to play, is it?
It's completely free to play.
Wow.
And there is like a platinum currency. But because all your leveling is tied to leveling up individual items, actually buying an item with real money doesn't actually progress you in the game in terms of your actual overall level, because you've still got to level it up. So you might as well craft it, because you've got loads of weapons. So in that sense, it's like, it really isn't, pay for progress at all. The things that people tend to play for are like, extra inventory slots, which is super cheap. And, beyond that, cosmetics, just to access just weird new fetish wear for your space game that you like. And yeah, it's good on PS4 as well, which is where I've been playing it. But it's, it's primarily a PC game. The PC game is ahead in terms of updates and things like that. Updates are free, regularly added, and the next update they're planning not only has a massive new open world zone, but cooperative spaceship combat, which is almost like FTL, but you're in the spaceship. God. One person is piloting it through an encounter, and the other 2 can take weapons. And then when you get close to the ship you need to take down, you shoot one of your companions out into space, and they use the space maneuvering that I described earlier for those space missions, and you pilot into the enemy ship, and they go around while the person in the ship hacks terminals to open doors for them.
Oh my god.
And
are you saying you go inside the spaceships?
I'm saying, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'm in.
And that's the weird thing about this game. Like, there's nothing about the game that suggests it needed that. And that's what all the updates feel like. This, like, I'm pretty sure there's no one saying, "Why can't I hatch a dog from an egg in this game?" in the forums, and yet they put it in because they sort of thought
they've solved a lot of problems that weren't problems.
I'm really quite endeared. I find it quite endearing. Like, how kind of scattered it is and weird it is, and there's really nothing like it. And it's and again, it's like, as far as I can tell so far, it's really. It's not exploitative in a way that actually tries to make money from its audience. And there's so many people play it. What a weird game. Strange game.
Strange game. It's like a sort of strange B-side of MMOs. I was trying to figure out the analogy for like what it is.
It's kind of like a session play game. It's like, it is kind of a co-op session game.
I know what it is. It's the jazz MMO.
Mm.
In that it's kind of freewheeling and you don't really know where it's going next, but it's sort of adheres to some sort of internal logic that...
There's a rhythm somewhere.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. Whereas like, and obviously if you're a connoisseur of it, you can kind of follow it and appreciate its ideas artistically or design-wise or in any possible way. But there's a sort of orthodoxy that sets in around like how everyone else makes an MMO that it is defiantly on the other side of.
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely not doing anything in a straightforward way. So like, we're not going to do a PvP mode the way that everyone does it. We're going to do our own weird ass thing.
Yeah.
Sexy, strange game.
Tom, Francis, what have you been playing?
I've been playing Unavowed, which is the new point-and-click adventure game from Wadget Eye Games, written by Dave Gilbert. They did Blackwell Legacy is the series that they're best known for, and then the Shivah is, I think, another of their games or series of games. I feel like I was duped into being excited about this because I'm not into point and clicks. It's not at all my genre. I usually dislike them. Way back in the day, I liked Monkey Island and the LucasArts ones, but mostly because there were no games that made any sense or were in any way intuitive or accessible. And so the fact that point and click games are incredibly obtuse and frustrating at times didn't count. It was just like, oh, but these are great stories and everything's obtuse and frustrating at this point in video games. And since then I haven't really liked them because there are games now that you can play without being stuck for ages. And then I just remember being annoyed on Twitter because Dave Gilbert was tweeting like, Blackwell Legacy is out in, and it would be like 14 days. I was like, oh god, that's not close enough for this to be like a hype tweet, and getting slightly irritated by those endlessly retweeting. But then like, when it was like, it's coming out tomorrow, I was like, oh shit, it's coming out tomorrow? Now I'm really excited to play this game for some reason. So that tactic works annoyingly, even though it's quite frustrating to read. And yeah, I just like, for some reason really, really fancy just a pure narrative game, just like a nice story. The pixel art, all the screenshots that they've been posting are really gorgeous. And it's a game about demonic possession in the modern day. So it's a modern day setting, and the art style is very, it reminds me a lot of Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, if anyone played
cool.
that, which is like close to realistic, very realistic proportions, not cartoonish, but just a little bit stylized. And set the same mix of like supernatural elements with the real world. I love it. I had a really good time. I finished with it now, and I just had a brilliant time. There were a couple of puzzles that were really obtuse, and I had to look up a walkthrough, but, you know, walkthroughs exist, and actually Steam makes it even easier to, you know, in-game, you can just press a combination and click guides and then just see, how do I solve this fucking puzzle, and then just move on with it. And I had to do that like 3 times, which is low for me with an adventure game. Usually I have to look it up like every scene. And the first thing that really grabbed me about it is just like, man, the plot really moves along. It starts you out in a situation that's kind of mysterious and bizarre, and you're trying to figure out who you are in this world and like what your story is. And very, very early on, really shocking things are happening. You're just like, oh my god, what? Like within the first 5 minutes of the game, which is very rare. Usually, one of the things I don't like about this genre usually is there's just so much fucking backstory and lore and scene setting and building up and building up and building up until one interesting thing happens, and then another 6 hours of looking into that. Whereas this kicks off really fast, and then it just has this really nice structure of like, it's divided into very self-contained episodes that are it's very much based on BioWare games in its structure. So you have companions, and after a certain point you can choose which companions you take on with you on each little adventure. And like BioWare games, it has these points where it's like, now there's 3 things you can do, and you can choose whatever order you want to do them in, but you do have to do them all. And so each one of those will be a location in New York that you go to. There's been some kind of demonic or supernatural activity. You investigate what the hell it is. You are central to all of it because I won't spoil anything about the plot that isn't that you're not told from the opening scene. But basically you've been possessed and you've done some shit. And so in each scene, you have flashbacks to like what you've done. And, that gives you leads to investigate the paranormal activity going on. And they're so good at like within the space of half an hour, probably each of these is a little self-contained plot that escalates to like really high stakes and to a really tough decision. It'll, like BioWare games again, it'll build towards a situation where like, well, these two forces are in conflict. These two people want different things. This person's in a terrible, awkward situation. There's no good answer to this. What do you want them to do? And, it kind of has a similar, not really problem, but sort of slightly odd thing that BioWare games also have, which is like, well, why is it me deciding this? And there's, an early scene where it's like I'm making a huge decision about this person's life. And I'm just asked, like, what do I think they should do? And, I just said, well, it should be your choice. And they said, I can't decide. I think you should decide for me. All right. I just have to make this massive decision for you. And so I actually made that decision purely on what, just before I had to make that decision, what it sounded like that person kind of wanted. They wouldn't tell me what they wanted, but I felt like what they'd said was kind of leaning towards this. So I'm going to choose that for them because I think they should choose. And I think they would have chosen that if they weren't so, but yeah, some of those are properly tough. Like you just have to stop and think, oh God, none of these options are good. But the choices do feel natural. It's not like, oh, but I can think of this third option. Why don't we just do that? It does feel like, oh, I don't see any way to make everyone happy here. And, there's often like a tension between what you would, there's one scene where I'm just like, if this was real, I would definitely just cave to the bad guy, do what the bad guy wants, because he's got someone hostage and the risk that they'll kill them is just too great. But I was just kind of like so intrigued they didn't have to. I was like, really have to think about it for a long time. And I thought, I'm just going to see what happens if I don't do this, if I resist the bad guy and just let them kill this hostage. And actually in that particular scene, it's very much shouldn't be your decision to make. Someone else has a way bigger stake in this than you do. Not the hostage, but someone else. And that's why I was fascinated by. Why can I decide this? And so I tried it and they said, no, don't listen to that. Like they just overruled me because it kind of was their decision. And so each chapter builds towards its climax and they all have their own kind of like theme to it. It has a very convenient, story reason for why you have to investigate a series of paranormal happenings. And that part is maybe a little bit fudged, but it's such a good framework for just a series of really good self-contained stories. You're part of like the Unavowed is a sort of supernatural crime fighters or, they fight the supernatural.
What is an Unavowed?
So I looked it up because I was also, avowed is like when you publicly sort of swear something. So if you're an avowed vegan, you've publicly said, I'm a vegan, it's like, hold me to this. And so if you're unavowed, I guess you just haven't really committed yet.
The non-committal.
The game does not explain this any better than Googling the word.
Just disavowed would be more dramatic. It's like
Disavowed.
you turned your back on it or something.
Because unavowed would suggest that somebody else hasn't made any promises about you.
Yep. Just no one's made any promises. No promises here. Your compatriots are, some of them are sort of supernatural themselves. Choosing who you take with you is a nice idea, and it's better than not having that feature, but I can't help but sort of ache for the amount of work they put into it, and it has a big downside. The big downside is, one of your compatriots is someone who can talk to ghosts. The Fire Mage, and I love this, one of his abilities other than throwing fireballs is he can read any text that's been burnt. So if anyone's ever burned a book, like any book that's ever been burnt, he can read it if he knows like what to look for. Then one of them just has a sword. That's her thing.
And sword guy.
It's a cool Ian.
One of them's a cop with a gun. She has a gun. That's her thing. And so, I hate to give this advice, but if you haven't played it yet and you're going to play it, I would just say, take the ghost guy and take the fire guy. Because if you don't, I swear to God, every single time it's like you get there and there's a fucking ghost right there and you cannot talk to them unless you have the ghost guy with you.
Shoot it or sword.
Sorry?
Could you still see it if you don't bring the...
You can still see it, which is the frustrating thing. It'd almost be better if you couldn't see it.
Right.
But you can, and you
what
can't
does
talk
it do?
to it. You don't know what it is. Yeah, it's all ghosts look the same, which is actually I kind of like. It's this weird thing where like the person who can talk to ghosts can also see ghosts. He knows what they look like, but he doesn't know who they are, and he can talk to them, but you can't. And also, it is almost comical, like, every time I left the fire mage behind, within 5 minutes, someone's talking about, oh yeah, and they just burnt the receipt right there on the spot. Or they were at a barbecue and they threw the journal onto the grill. And there's a car wreck and their driver's license got burnt up. Like, oh my god, all these crucial texts
the
being
one
burnt.
time where you need the shredder mage. Or the soiled mage.
How did you find cause it looks very 1996? Did you find the kind of, like, obviously you can trade on that, but did you find that retroism, like it's got that font?
I like the way it looks, and it's mercifully, modernized in terms of usability. So the pixel art, it's got a nice kind of mix of like, quite old fashioned, pixel art for the general scenes, but when anyone's talking, there's a portrait on, like, that just superimposed on the scene that is, actually done by a different artist, and is still pixel art, but it's much more detailed and kind of more characterful, and they have different expressions for what they're saying and stuff. That works really well. It's also voiced, and there's a very strange thing going on that I love, which is, one of the things I really, really like about it, and that a key to me getting along with this game is you can skip every fucking thing super fast, and it just, I don't know, there are games where you can skip the dialogue, but it kind of hates you doing it, and it will cause a little delay, and it'll be like, oh, nothing's quite ready for you yet. Oh, no, we need to learn this stuff. This game seems to love you skipping it. Like, it's so quick. It's just like, I found it deeply satisfying to play. And even on the first time through, it's fully voiced, but you're reading the text at the same time. And I would always just read the thing, and as soon as I finish reading it, I skip the line, even though they're still saying it. And in a way, that's a waste of the voice acting. But also, if it wasn't voiced, I would get much less out of it somehow. Like, the fact that I know what this line does sound like, I know what this person sounds like, and how they're emoting it, or whatever. I don't need to hear the whole line. I just need to hear a little bit of it. And in a weird way, it almost gets stored in my memory as if I did hear them say the whole line. In the same way that, like, when you're watching a subtitled movie, after a while, your brain is sort of feeling like you're hearing them say it. Like, not literally, but you forget you're reading anything. And so that feels very slick and smooth to play like that. I can breeze through it at my own pace. It's totally up to you how fast or slow you want to play it. And a really nice, little feature is that instead of having to like click on look at and then click on an item, just as you're moving the cursor around, it is telling you what you would say if you were looking at it. So it describes everything as you move the cursor around. You don't even need to click. It just, all of that. And so that also boils everything down to, if the cursor doesn't turn into a use cursor as you mouse over something, then you don't need to use it. And it's really just stuff you can use, people you can talk to, and exits. Those are the only three things that you have to worry about.
Man.
And you do have an inventory, and you can use items on other items, but it's all pretty intuitive. And also you have your companions in your inventory, strangely. So if you want to tell one of your companions to like interact with something, you go to inventory and you select them from there and then say, usually it's fire mage on thing that needs melting or ghost guy on the ghost. And then, like halfway through, basically it has the story developments in it are really good. Each like chapter kind of advances the story a little bit. I love the feeling of just like knowing it's a mystery, and just knowing you're going to be getting juicy bits of new information at every stage is just really compelling. And then there was one moment in the story that just made me say, what? For like continuously.
This might be the first time I've heard you recommend an adventure game.
Yeah.
Tom. Like, are there any others you'd recommend?
I do love, I loved Indiana Jones: The Fate of Atlantis. Yeah, I loved, Grim Fandango, and I love Longest Journey. All three of them I needed walkthroughs for. And this I did as well, but less so. And I would say it's the best adventure game I've played since the good old days.
Nice.
Oh wow.
That's awesome. I'm definitely into that.
Apparently it's, it has broken their 1 month sales record in 1 week, for Wedge Eye Games. But they did clarify that that's, it's a hit in their books, but it's still quite modest by most people's standards.
Is it the unavowed? Or?
Yeah. No, just unavowed.
Just unavowed.
Yeah.
Right. I'll check that.
And only 2 people on my Steam friends list play it. So that's quite low, and more people should.
Amazing.
Cool.
I've been playing a game that has sold very well. because I've been playing Monster Hunter World.
Oh yeah.
Which came out last week on PC. And I appreciate, Tom and Alex, you both played it on PlayStation.
Yeah, that we spoke about on the pod a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I appreciate that it was months ago now, because it was when it came out on the...
Oh god. Yeah,
it was 6 months ago. But yeah, so I appreciate that we've talked about it before, so we won't go on about it too much, but...
Still good though.
It is very good, and there's just so many things I like about it. But so this is a game where it's kind of sort of hard. It's sort of technically like, I guess, sort of like an open world RPG, but it really is a hunting game to the extent that it's about going out on these expeditions to slay or capture monsters, to gather materials, to improve your gear, and then sort of do it all again, basically in sort of remixed forms, either in co-op or by yourself. Each of its levels, they're not like massive, not like the biggest open worlds you've ever been in, but they're almost constructed like Mario Kart tracks. They're these kind of like winding, like meshes of shortcuts and kind of arenas and sort of throughways. And every fight you have, involves travel, across the map, and everything feels sort of, I don't really know where to start with it. Cause when you first start playing it, it's half brilliant in terms of lots of things about its presentation that I want to get to, but also, it front loads a lot of things that maybe it assumes you understand. Like, difference between, when you first start playing, you really don't know what it means to press B on some nuts versus pressing B on some mushrooms. Those are very, very different things in Monster Hunter. B on a fern, that's its own different thing. You're just pressing B on a lot of things and gathering up all these materials. And it's a game that sort of exists right on the edge of being too fiddly to function, basically, at any given time. It's only by virtue of the fact that you have, for example, like infinite inventory space for crafting materials. Not for everything, but for like the important stuff. And that everything kind of spills out in this way. I'm sort of maybe struggling to kind of articulate why it's good straight away, but I think maybe to be less generalist and more subjective, I have not sunk any significant time into a new video game for months. Like Subnautica was the last time a game really grabbed me, and kind of like I sat and played it for a long time. I don't play games in the way that I used to. Like, I've played a bunch of things that I've liked this year, but I find it really easy to put things down. And it's, and I've played, a number of like short single player games all the way through, but there's a reason that like I look at something like the Red Dead trailer and I'm like, yep, I'm basically done. Like I play, bits of PUBG here and there, but like I've become the kind of person who has an hour to play. And therefore one game, and I try to play a lot of different games, so therefore one game is very unlikely will kind of keep me coming back. And also as my hobbies have changed. And Monster Hunter has really cut through that in a way that it's sort of a pure video game and a very nicely crafted video game. But it's just such a kind of relentless source of enjoyment to play, that also fits into sort of relatively modest play times that maybe a little bit like with you and Warframe, Tom. It's sort of just become the thing I just want to play. And partly that's because of, obviously the compulsive nature of crafting and slaying the next monster and getting the gear and figuring out, but if I kill that monster again or capture it this time, I can build this chess piece and this kind of thing. And I could get into its RPG systems and why I think they're clever and what they allow you to do. So, gear does get better as you go up in level, but like you never level up. Each piece of gear has skills attached to it. And so if you're using a weapon with poison attack on it, and one particular monster early in the game drops a belt that increases the poison attack skill, that's your only way of getting it. And if you have belt and gloves, then you have level 2, but they might come from different creatures. And so the progression system actually sends you back out into the world and all this stuff. But the thing I think that gets me the most about it is its presentation is brilliant. Both in terms of, obviously, it's a really good looking game. Monster designs are amazing. Like, it's just kind of top to bottom, great, characterful creature designs that are all amazingly animated, loads of personality. Like its version of a T-Rex, which is kind of like the first big kind of boss, is also the Anjanath is also kind of like a vulture, which is a really kind of cool link, like almost like dinosaurs are big birds kind of thing. Like it has this sort of like, the not frill, like the ruff of a vulture kind of thing. And it's really threatening. I just killed a very, very angry lizard dog in a kind of like rotting stomach kind of wasteland thing. And it looks furious in its animations, the way it kind of snaps at you.
Man, that thing is fucking furious.
It's very angry
so
dog,
angry.
red
I
dog.
love fighting that thing. I hate it, but I love it.
But you know what I mean? It's kind of an asshole. Like, they have so much,
it's
they have, the monsters have personality. And it has this strange relationship with the fact that, like, you're also kind of an asshole. Because, you know, you kill these monsters that start to flee and limp and run away. You chop their tails off and harvest their tails for bits and stuff. You do all this stuff. But also, it has such a kind of, like, fun sense of humor about itself. That, for some reason, just, you know, like, it's just, it's a sort of, I have found it, like, very refreshing as a place to spend time, if that makes sense. Like, all the characters kind of really like each other and really like monster hunting and really like what they're doing. Everyone's just having a really good time, even though there's like, you know, stakes. It's kind of about discovering the kind of cycle of life and discovering some truth about nature by killing a lot of it. There's a real sort of like fun, like it's never like, not wholesale levity, but there's maybe,
there's a goofiness to it.
There's like, a light goofiness. Like, you have as soon as you build your good character creation, you build your character, and then you build your, palico, which is your little best friend who's a cat. Like a cat that walks on two legs. And these are just part of society. I have not played a previous Monster Hunter game, so they're not explained. You just, everyone, like, and you have a palico that follows you around, players do, and you can build them armor and equipment. They fight on your behalf, they use gadgets, they can speak, but they can talk in chat, but they mostly just meow or otherwise because they're basically cats. But like, cats also just do jobs around the town and things.
They cook you beautiful meals.
They cook you incredible meals.
The most incredible looking.
The animation, the animation for when the cats are cooking you a meal
so
is incredible.
Tom, is Monster Hunter food more or less tasty than Final Fantasy?
That's the ultimate.
15?
That's the ultimate face-off. It's weird how like some Japanese games are kind of obsessed with food. Because I was thinking about
And
this in
Yakuza
as well.
Yeah.
I do, but I think. So what you get from Final Fantasy is the finished product. What you get from Monster Hunter is the delight of cats cooking that shit for you, putting it on the
when you
barbecue,
upgrade it and it adds,
slicing it
when you
apart.
upgrade it and it adds more cats.
Yeah, exactly.
The best animation is when you unlock there's just so much lovely detail in it. Like, because it looks extremely silly. Like, the best way I could describe it is like the armor suits are insane. Like, you dress up almost as the monsters.
Yeah, right.
And like, it's so kind of vibrant and fun. My favorite palico animation is the one where you deploy the Trail Raider Safari. Which is so good. So the Trail Raider Safari is, I think you unlock a little bit deeper into the game. I played about 25 hours of it.
Wow.
So you've got the second animation for when they deploy. Like falling down.
You know that is the first because that's when you get them. Because there's one when you deploy them from your house because your butler is also a cat. Have
you got the new house?
Yeah, I've got the second house.
Yeah, that's the good one.
Yeah,
that's good.
But so you get this.
What are you all talking about?
I'll explain this animation. So basically, this is a feature called like the game is all about just collecting and sort of farming, but it's all fun and stuff. You unlock this thing called the Trail Raider Safari, which is where you can send out cats that you've met by playing co-op with other players. So their partners, their cat companions, their palicos, are assembled into teams of 3 that you can then send out on missions for you. And you get a choice of routes they can take. And those routes take the form of like, they'll go to this zone and they'll fight these monsters in this order. These 5 monsters. And and each of these would constitute a quest if you did it, basically. And every time you decide to do a quest, they do one. And then when they finished all of them, they come back and they give you the reward. So they don't get the same things you would get out of it, but it's sort of just like a little efficiency boost. You know, if you were to do it in dry mechanical terms, it's just a little kind of another button to push, another kind of process to set in motion while you're doing the busy work of crafting up your healing potions and making traps and all the stuff you do in the game. But the animation is fucking great because you pick which team you want to send out and they're like, wah! We're going. And then there's always this great music when you send palicos to do anything. And you send them on and you pick the mission and they're all like, they look at each other like, yeah, we're going. And then they bound down. They're in a floating galleon, basically, like suspended in the sky by balloons. And they leap down like one of the other palicos is like working the galleon, like pulls a big lever and they all like cling onto the anchor, what would be the anchor for a ship if it was at sea. And then this person like pulls the lever and releases it and the anchor just starts like shooting down through the atmosphere and they're all holding onto it like, yeah, we're going on a huge adventure. And then right as it gets to its like terminal velocity as they're being kind of deployed, it just closes in on one of the 3 cats, which I should stress is like, just pulled from whatever they're dressed as based on the equipment that their players have made for them. And you see the slightest shadow of fear across its eyes. And like, what am I doing? And then it cuts. And it's just the best. And
it could be dressed as a bug. It could be dressed as
I've got mine dressed as a ladybird at the moment.
Ladybird.
Mine for a long time was dressed in the armor you get from is it the Rodoban, the big roly beast? Where basically you dress the cat basically in like a little mech. And it's just wearing this little tiny space suit.
It's enormous.
Oh, it's so good. Sometimes when a mission ends, you just randomly give it a sausage. Oh, it's so good. But on top of all of this stuff, which has just made me very happy, basically, it just makes, like, every time I go back to it and play, I don't watch the crafting animation every time, but I do watch the cooking animation every time.
Yeah.
That music is in my brain forever now. But like, also I have basically, I tried one weapon when I started because I'd never played Monster Hunter before, and then I switched to something else, something a little bit more advanced. Can you guess which weapon I went for in the end?
Ooh, I don't think you went sword and shield.
I bet it was charge blade. No?
Bow.
Insect glaive.
Oh.
Of course it bloody was.
Esoteric weird one.
I was going to say that.
It's the weirdest weapon.
It's very odd.
Can you imagine, like, you are a developer and you've got to come up with a weapon designed for hitting and dispatching vast fucking dinosaurs, right?
This is so good.
The insect glaive is probably never anything you're ever going to imagine.
Well, a lot of them like this. So there's like when I first started playing, I picked the longsword because I was like, I just want to learn basically what is going on. Like, and then I was like, okay, I get this. I want to try something different. Like, I want to try one of they have like an accessibility rating, and I was like, I'm going to try one of the ones that isn't 3-star accessible. Insect glaive is 2-star accessible. And like, this is the thing, like, obviously Warframe does this. It's, I think any good sort of action RPG, which Monster Hunter basically does this, where it's like, you pick a playstyle, and if that playstyle is still fun to do 20 hours in, and you don't want to change, then they've really nailed it.
Yeah.
And like, so, it's now weird to me that there's like 14 weapons in the game, and they all might as well be different games. Because Monster Hunter for me is the game that I play with the insect glaive.
For sure.
And what this means is my way of taking out a monster is, so I have a glaive, like a spear thing, and I have a huge customizable bug that sits on my right arm. My left arm. Mine at the moment is a huge, like, chunky, fuck off ladybird, basically. And it does crush damage, and it has, thunder damage, and it leaves paralyzed spores behind. So what I do is I shoot. It's good.
We understand.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, what I do
you have to send it off.
Yeah, so I have an attack. I have two things. I can either shoot a bait dart out of my spear, or I can hit with the bait thing activated to leave a mark on the monster. So like a splatter of bug bait on its face or its knee or something like that. And then the bug goes zzz and starts hitting that part of it as much as it can. It does its damage and things. And then when it hits a certain part of the monster, it'll pick up a certain buff. And it'll either be speed, attack, damage, or armor. And most of the time you get damage from the head, speed from the limbs, and armor from the body, and a fourth healing effect from the tail.
Yeah.
But it's different on every kind of monster, so you have to learn this. And some parts of different monsters are harder to hit than others. So some monsters have really big heads and like to charge at you, so that's easy. Whereas on some monsters, the limbs are hard to hit because they've got big wings that drape over them. What you do is you send it, when it's got a particular color of buff, you pull the bug back, and then it gives you the buff. And then you send it out again, and each combination of colors does something different. And when you have all three, you gain loads of other buffs, including the ability to like not be stunned when monsters roar, which is a really huge thing. And you can also, while this is happening, so you're shooting the bug to kind of get things, you also have this really agile spear. So you can leap into the air, which most character classes can't do. You vault, basically. And then when you're vaulting, you can either do like a ground attack, which is pretty powerful, or you can do a kind of like spinning combo. And if the last attack in the combo connects with anything, it begins the aerial sequence over again. So you can do this thing where you kind of stay in the air for ages, just like flying backwards and forwards over the monster. But you lose control of your bug while you're doing that. So there's this strange game of like bug management and spear combat and aerial juggling.
Just simple hitting as well.
Yeah,
right?
which is like, and also every time your bug hits the enemy, it leaves a cloud of spores behind of a particular elemental type. And these activate when they are hit by anything. So mine leave like paralyzed spores behind. So I might fight a monster in a particular place, and those spores just sort of hang in the air, and then the monster moves, and I lure it back into that space, and then do my aerial combo to like spin through them and detonate them, which then paralyzes the monster. But there might be healing spores, or it's just fucking crazy.
The insect glaive is fucking mad.
Yeah.
Like, I play it in co-op a lot, and I haven't seen anyone else using it in co-op. And it's
Really?
Yeah.
Because it's big on the, you know,
just all longswords.
like in the kind of like the original version, like Monster Hunter 4
I mean, I'm not saying like
Generations.
special. I'm a butterfly, literally, but like it's more that like I really haven't seen anyone using it.
Yeah, that's
And
interesting that people aren't. Maybe it's because a lot of the PC players aren't.
Totally new to it, right?
Yeah, totally new to
Series.
it.
But it's been really fun to like because you know one of the factors of its co-op thing is that there's not friendly fire, but you can interrupt each other. So if you're both whacking the same thing and you hit each other, you interrupt each other's combos.
So on the
You know,
previous games, I was into Greatsword, which is like a super simple, very like straightforward weapon,
Super disruptive.
but incredibly, you have to be very careful. Like this is a vast, like it's taller than you are, your character is, and you wear it on your back. And when you use it, you're kind of staggering slightly because it's just so heavy. You're sort of holding it sort of away from your body, but you can see just how heavy it is in the way of the stance, and you can't move very fast, but you can still roll. So like the secret to it is that you're constantly getting it out and then stowing it so you can run normally, and then you can putting one hit and then stowing it, one hit and then stowing it, constant staccato thing, and picking your moments because you hit really hard, just like for one hit, and then you put it away again. But then, once you know that a monster's going to be in one place for a while, maybe it's stunned or something, there are all these charge moves and things, which really kind of, you know, you are a real damage dealer when that happens. But, as Tom was saying, you can really disrupt. There's various motions. There's a spin move that it does, which just knocks other players flying. Doesn't hurt them, but they just fly out of the way.
It's going to mess up their combos.
And like they will get fucked up and they'll get angry with you. So you've got to be a really careful player. And like that's the Greatsword play. And like it's like it initially seems quite simple, but actually it's all about you have to read every movement of you have to
it
know
rewards you
all
so
of the
much
monsters.
for just greater understanding and precision,
Yeah.
and like
It's
knowing
a real skill game. Like it really
I
is.
know the
Yeah.
patterns. I know this monster that it's
Yeah.
going to dodge this way. I know this.
Like, I know that, for example, now that, like, I actually do more damage with my ground combos than I do with the aerial stuff. But if I'm playing co-op and there's no other insect glaive people, I can do the aerial stuff relatively safely because no one else is up there.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'll just fly, like, if I can get the full 5 chain off, particularly like in a big monster with wings, you can fly basically up along its body, back and forth, just doing damage, and everyone else can do whatever the hell they like. And you can sort of stay with it for ages, and you can like, mount the monster easier because you can get up there easier.
Yeah.
And I love that feeling of like having a role.
Yeah.
But also the other thing, and I appreciate, obviously we talked about it before, but like I really am like in love with it a bit because it's just like exactly the game I wanted. I think also partly because it's not that it feels disposable, but because it's a little bit lighter, because it really doesn't like, it has its very strong identity, but it's not trying to tell me a particular story really. I feel like I can play as much of it as I want to without feeling like I, you know, kind of, it's this sort of like lifetime commitment. But also, I love how much spectacle it manages to get out of these creatures and like these environments that, you know, initially like there isn't like a load of them. Like it's not like massive necessarily, but like, you know, at the moment I'm trying to finish off a few more Argonaths because there's a bounty basically and I want to kind of get some armor cores so I can, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like every time I go and fight one of those vulture T-Rexes, something mad happens.
Right.
Like, you know, it gets into a turf war with another monster and you get these kind of crazy animations and then you see that a couple of times and it's cool, but then you see it in a place you never thought you'd see it. And the fact that like, I think, maybe to broaden this out, like something that I think about a lot and was thinking about the Red Dead thing is like, at this point in my, you know, understanding of games, I see how games are made as much as I see the game. And so with something like Red Dead, I feel like I've seen a lot of those systems before. Like, you know, you can kind of appreciate how they work, the crafting and stuff like that. And you can present things in new and kind of more interesting ways, but I've kind of done it in a Far Cry or in another GTA or in another open world game. And with this, I kind of get, okay, they have particular monster behaviors for arenas, corridors, and they have particular parts of geometry that different monsters know how to deal with. So there is a whole type of monster that has some behavior when it's around a tree or any kind of column.
Yeah.
Like they can jump up and kind of coil around it and then leap off
Toby
it.
Kadachi.
Yeah. I'm still wearing Toby Kadachi
Yeah,
stuff.
it's a really nice suit, that is.
Yeah.
That's a fucking cool monster to
Very
fight as well.
Yeah, incredible design. Like,
Women's one has a lovely
it's like a
fluffy hat.
lightning flying
Lightning
squirrel.
squirrel. Yeah, fly squirrel. Fucking
lizard
cool.
thing.
Yeah, so good.
Is that Toby Kadachi you're wearing? It's my favorite designer.
Yeah. I'm upgrading to Legiana, the flying
Oh,
snow
that's a fucking
dragon.
beautiful monster as
yeah,
well.
great.
Yeah.
And
Bit
like,
of a douchebag, though.
Annoying. Obviously, they freeze you and slow you down.
yeah, but you can, and you can see it if you approach it from a game time point of view, you can see, okay, well, they understand how they've got these basically bits of geometry that monsters know how to interact with. So even though the monsters are these huge things, if you're in an area with columns in it, basically it'll activate the kind of column combos and behaviors from the monsters. But that directly feeds into stuff that players can work around because you understand, and this feels like being a hunter in some weird way. Like I understand how a monster's going to behave in a particular environment, but also it allows for kind of like crazy spectacle when things combine in a way that you don't expect. So you get like a Toby Kadachi against a Anjanath in an environment where the Kadachi can climb the trees, and you get these crazy every frame of the game is like this sort of strange screenshot of warriors with huge weapons taking on a T-Rex as a giant electric lizard squirrel unfurls its wing flaps and leaps off a tree at the dinosaur's face, while my beetle flies up the dinosaur's arse, and the cat that I'm best friends with throws a boomerang at it. And it's like, no one would deliberately combine any of these elements, but I'm like happy every moment that I'm in there.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. Have you hit high rank yet?
No.
So you should hurry to that.
Really, because I've been sort of like, every time I go up a star rating, I've been like doing everything, and then
Don't.
This is the big problem with the game, where it's so poor at communicating a lot. And a lot of that is, it's Easter egg, and it's, as we said when we talked about the podcast previously, it's basically a series that's just kind of built on its own fan base over and over again, which is why it has so many kind of odd systems that you have to learn. But the one big thing that it doesn't tell you is that low rank is a tutorial. When you get to high rank, your priorities completely change. It unlocks all of the crafting materials that you're going to need to actually do stuff in the game, and it starts unlocking the big monsters and the fucking most impressive shit.
There will be a lot more monsters. There's a lot more monsters.
A lot more. So,
but then also, what I found as well, it was a great big crushing things. I had been collecting a lot of stuff.
I was doing that as well.
And then all of that stuff is suddenly
irrelevant.
Completely
right. That's actually very good to know.
Because, and it shouldn't be, because actually the game does a good job of making you feel that you can always upgrade your stuff to keep, if you like its
I haven't
effects.
been obsessing about it too much.
But the new stuff is just so much more better. And
so much more better.
So much more better.
But it's it also mostly looks identical. So basically, I remember being quite sad when my Toby Kadachi gear, I had stuff that was objectively better, and I just had to put it away. But you get to make it again in high rank, but it does mean if you've put shitloads into your low rank stuff, you're going to feel disappointed.
I'm glad that I haven't obsessed about that. I've just been sort of ticking off the boxes, unlocking the recipes and stuff.
Smash your way through the story as fast as you can.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. That's good.
Hit high rank. Then once you've hit that point, take as much time.
Then you can take your time.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And you see some fucking best monsters. The best is yet to come. That's
good to know. Yeah, that's rather because I realized I wasn't min-maxing necessarily, but if there was I haven't gone on any hunts specifically to get a piece of gear.
Good.
Every single level I've gone what's the best thing I can make right now, and then make that, and then
that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
But I just blast through low rank with bone armor, which is the thing that you get very quickly just by
it's good.
Bones. And it's really good, and it's designed to be the thing that carries you through to high rank really. And
you just keep putting armor.
It just never tells you, look, just get here, because it unlocks fucking the rest of the game. But yeah.
Lovely.
Cool. Great game.
That is a real problem with the game.
Are you guys going to return to it on PC?
I will. I've been obsessed with Warframe recently, but I really want to go back to it because I really want to learn the hunting horn.
Yeah. So the hunting horn.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what a beauty.
I mean, like, I mean, we won't spend too much time on Monster Hunter in the podcast, but briefly, the hunting horn, your attacks, each attack is a musical note, and you play different tunes with your attacks that grant buffs to your party. And God. You could play, I've hit this monster in the head with the speed up song that makes all of my mates
go faster.
And you're there like away from the action because you're playing your great big thing, but it's also a massive
really good hammer. It's a really
you can also smash stuffs in the nose as well.
And, so hammers in particular are amazing at hitting it like monster heads. Like they do extra damage, they do extra kind of armor penetration with when you hit them in the head. And so with your hunting horn, you sort of play your fucking stupid bagpipe thing by wanging your fucking giant wang around your head, making different notes, making the stamina song, making the strength song, making the speed song, and then you go open and clonk a thing in the head and knock it out, and then everyone just wails on it. And I want to learn how to do that really well.
I wouldn't play because
I did start playing, and I felt because there's a lot of tutorial and tech and talking at the start, as much as the tutorial doesn't really tell you about all these little weird filigree details in it. But, I felt a bit sad as I was going through it. It was like, oh God, I've done all this before. Jesus Christ. But then I did the first couple of I killed the great Ludoth, the Grand Ludoth.
Gragas?
Yeah. No, the one with it swallows.
Yeah.
The great
Gragas. The old one. Yeah, okay. Anyway,
Jagras, the great Jagras.
Jagras, yeah, that's it. I killed that without getting hit by it once, and I thought, oh fuck, I'm good at this game.
Yeah.
Because I was also trying out, never done dual blades, which are simple, just
really
very fast.
Yeah.
The thing I do love about it is it's technically about like an expedition full of like the world's best monster hunters off to trace this dragon that's got like this Godzilla dragon that's got a volcano on its back, and they keep losing it. Like, how do you lose the like? I can fucking smell berries 400 yards away, and the plot hinges on the fact that 400 of me can't follow a moving volcano.
That moving volcano is the worst thing about the game.
It's terrible.
It really is the worst thing about the game.
The worst fight.
Run around on my back and hit
my nodes.
Hit my nodes.
Yeah. Fucking amazing game. But, yeah, fuck. Magdaros.
Indeed. Let's do some questions. Let's do some questions. We got a lot of questions for the 250th episode, which is my fault, because when I was apologizing, for Wissing a Meek, I said, why not send us some questions? And I meant that, but we got a lot of questions, more than we have time for now, because unfortunately, we've already been wanging on for a real long time about a lot of things. So we're going to choose and answer 3 questions. But we may well return to our bounteous bucket of, queries in a future episode. Alex says committally. No, I don't mean that, because there was
that wasn't meant to sound uncommittal.
there were a bunch of good questions. Some of them required more research than we're capable of.
Yeah, that's true.
Right now.
Yeah.
So we will go with the following. Thank you for emailing us. If you did, this is me just passing that buck to future Chris. First question comes from Hope, who writes, "Hello everyone. Apologies, I really wanted to come up with a death question, but I thought of a regular one instead. That must be referring to something. I don't know why."
No, I don't know why.
It's been 250 podcasts, so it's a lot.
You must
With
be
the resurgence of No Man's Sky, I was wondering which games you wish had the opportunity to be reworked and given a second life, either due to being lackluster when released or being able to benefit from a different release schedule or newer technologies. Looking forward to more episodes. Hope.
I mean, it has been returned to loads of times, but I still haven't played the X-Wing that played in my mind, or the TIE Fighter that played in my mind.
The X-Wing that played in my mind. That is actually, I can't believe you've just leaked my Twine game.
Sorry, Tom. Sorry, Tom.
So, to be clear,
you should apologise.
This is not a game that exists
You could
already.
have said, look, every other part of the room is Tom.
Yeah, you really looked at the only other person in the room who's not called Tom and said Tom.
I do. I know what you mean, though, Alex.
But
what you mean.
The game that played in my mind. So this is it was a game that hinted at sort of grand sort of galactic space battle strategies where sort of, you're on this operation and the plan was that these people would then warp in and this would happen and then you'd have to do them, kill that, fight this. And it was
Do them, kill that.
do the thing.
As they say,
Yeah.
I love the bit in A New Hope where someone's like, the plan's contained on this RT unit of real
Akbar says,
we must do them right up here.
do it there.
Our belief is that a small sub-fighter could do it right up this way.
I'm afraid, sir, not only do we have to do them, we also have to kill that.
It's a doing.
But I was really always just be amazed that the battle was playing out live at the time. You could go out to the map and you could see how these ships were doing that thing over by the
Honest to God,
doing.
I want Alex Wiltshire describes a space battle. And then they're doing it in there.
They've gone, they've done, they've conquered.
And you'd see the lasers from a distance. And it'd be, that was amazing. It was amazing. Oh my God.
This is like your fucking Roy Batty
I know
moment.
what you mean. I didn't
Like, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. I saw spaceships doing it. I saw lasers from a distance.
Fleets of bombers doing them bigger ships.
I went on
They
the
did it
map
right
and I
up.
saw the doings.
That I totally empathise with that. I got
But
this.
you never really saw it. It never really got updated. And you can play something like it with an intensity in the Battlefront games.
Yeah.
And,
I still do that.
And they are extraordinary spectacles, but there's simple shoot bangs, right? With not enough doings. And I would like to see a marriage of the spectacle.
You want a marriage of the shoot
And
bangs
the doings.
and the more sophisticated doings of the 90s.
I'm a big.
I know exactly what you mean, which is
Yeah.
fucking unfair.
Yeah.
Language should mean something.
Shouldn't be able to get away with this, Alex.
I thought I was very expressive.
I love objectives that do minimise you as a player and sort of make you a kind of.
Sorry, now I'm in the sort of like fucking Warframe, like minimise me Warframe, you kinky son of a bitch.
Warframe kind of does this though. So if you
Put me in a taskbar and nowhere else.
we were talking about like capture missions earlier where you zap someone and they fall onto the floor face first and then you dissolve them into your wristwatch. If you just sort of stand around looking at the scenery, they fuck off and leave without you.
What,
and
from the
wristwatch? No, they're not in your wristwatch to the point, they just keep on running, to their point and then they vanish. And like a lot of old kind of space sims were like this where there's a sortie happening and we're not going to really explicitly tell you how to get there. You're going to have to use a bit of navigation to actually get to the points where the thing's happening. And if you don't get there in time, that's the end of that. The game doesn't wait around for you. It's about, games are about, you need to get involved, get stuck in.
Yeah,
Go do
I
it.
would like.
Do the doing.
You got to do the doing. I would genuinely. I mean, obviously, if it was Star Wars, that's gravy. But like, I would genuinely love a sort of single player strategic starfighter combat game.
So there was some. Oh man,
House of the Rising Sun?
Yeah, House of the Rising Sun.
more of a
which I
roguelike,
didn't
though, weirdly, or like
quite. Yeah, I didn't.
No.
There was a certain amount you could direct your ships around it, like on the map.
I mean, I
and
liked it.
things.
It's a good dogfighting game, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have that that macro layer of planning a mission. Because the thing, I suppose the thing is, right? People don't tend to make fantasy games with that simulator attitude anymore. Like the simulator attitude is, it should take work and planning to do the good doing.
Yeah.
And that is still present in traditional flight simulators and traditional military sims and any game like the Armour, right? Where it's like you got to lie on your belly for half an hour if you want to shoot a man. And other games will let you shoot a man much faster. Immediately even. But people don't tend to apply that approach to fantasy settings anymore in a way that was quite common in the 90s. Like, you gotta believe the people making TIE Fighter and X-Wing were going, okay, well, the only precedent for a game like this, well, there are plenty of precedents for spaceship shooters, but the precedent we want to look to is like F-15 Falcon or something like that. We want to figure out how to make that, but with the cool spaceships.
Yeah.
And that can get to a kind of pedantic place or whatever, but it can also give you a degree of, like a sort of like verisimilitude or the feeling that you were there.
I also
that
feel
is
like,
missing now.
I feel like that feeds back into the fiction. So that feeds back into the films in a way that it kind of expands the films, right? So all those people in those films are actually, it kind of implies they're doing these processes. They're actually, they're
scanning
they're scanning, they're modulating shield values and stuff
They're
like
looking
that.
out the windows.
It lends a kind of credence to the world.
It does. And that is that is something that, man, this is not the question at all, but it's something that you go on about a lot, which is super interesting and I think can be very positive for world building. And recently in Star Wars specifically has almost been raised as a huge problem. Because that kind of, what I would describe as like video game world building or like systems driven world building, where it's like, this is the logic of the universe, plays directly against the ability for people to tell mythological stories, which Star Wars ultimately is. Right. So you get something like the backlash to The Last Jedi, where suddenly people are very angry that logic that was taught to them by video games, that Jedi level up, that Jedi get special powers, and the first one you get is push, and then you get pull, and then you get saber throw, and then you get big jump. Is then subverted by a movie that's more interested in character and theme than it is in the specific kind of granular technicality of how fucking space magic works. And suddenly people are flipping out and making petitions. Like, that's what's really interesting about the way that video game world building can be both like video game, like, honest to God, the answer isn't that one or the other is bad. The answer is that strangely, it's sort of like these things have a strange relationship with storytelling. And actually, I think, sort of space combat, the kind of like militaristic level of Star Wars, the machinery of Star Wars benefits tremendously from that approach. But I don't think, but I always think that the spiritual aspect of Star Wars or the mythological aspect of Star Wars was badly undermined by games, weirdly.
It's funny, it's almost embarrassing how strongly that like systemic aspect influences what books I enjoy. I'm just like, if there's fucking systems and rules and the book actually follows them, I'm in. I love The Martian just because it's laid out the physics and then it obeyed those physics and all the solutions had to conform to the rules that were already established. And I'm currently reading Name of the Wind. I don't like anything about it except that the magic systems that are, which are the reasons I was reading it, because I read them on a wiki, and I read that they had these rules to them that are consistent, and that's just the thing that's drawing me through the whole fucking massive book, is that there's this thing called sympathy, and like there's rules about how much the efficiency of moving one thing affects the other thing. And as soon as it's systemic, I'm just totally on board and I want to know everything.
Interesting. And I think you can have both, but I think it takes a sort of level of, I don't know, this is a totally separate topic. This is about the way that I think systematizing fantasy fiction has become more normal than an understanding analogy. Like, like, if there's like a big long list of things that have gone slightly wrong, like people not really understanding like religious analogy as a way of understanding fantasy fiction is a big part of that.
Yeah, that's interesting because it also behaves very differently in a very large book than it does in a 2-hour film.
Yeah.
Where actually very satisfying plots come from the spiritual elements that aren't, you know, precisely
the character elements of the thematic.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the stuff that delivers satisfaction on a smaller scale, you know, 2-hour span, rather than a world that you're actually sort of intellectually investing in a book. Like those things is very different. They just behave differently. Man, the stuff that's come out of the second Star Wars film, the new trilogy, it's been so dispiriting. Cause I really like that film a lot and what it tries to do to reform the Jedi and what they stand for.
Weirdly, so I went to see, Mamma Mia 2.
Yeah.
And
did you
about your question about updating games?
No, I can tell us back. No, I realized, like, actually, Mamma Mia 2 is The Last Jedi.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. Well, no, I mean, I'm joking and not at the same time, is The Last Jedi sequel that fans actually wanted. Because, alright.
Let's hear about the way you're not joking.
It's about a young woman who arrives on an island who doesn't know who her dad is. That's Mamma Mia 1.
Right.
Mamma Mia 2 deals with a much more fleshing out the backstory of all of the potential dads. And Cher is in it. And those are like the, you know, honestly, I think, you know, if you
Is Cher Luke Skywalker?
No, Luke Skywalker is, that's tough in this analogy.
Who's Pierce Brosnan?
Pierce Brosnan is Snoke in this analogy. Yeah. Or maybe Colin Firth is Snoke. I don't know. But
Colin Firth would have been a great Snoke just in Star Wars. It would have been amazing.
But I guess what I'm saying is that if you felt disappointed by The Last Jedi, and what you want is a backstory rich story about a young woman discovering her place in the world on an island, where her parentage is extremely important, but also not important, because what really is important is that we love each other and
ABBA.
And that made me think about, does ABBA exist in the Mamma Mia universe? Like, is this like, zombie movies don't exist in zombie films?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, no one in a zombie movie can ever have seen a zombie film, because otherwise they would know what was happening. No one in Mamma Mia can actually know ABBA.
They'd be freaked out. It'd be
Because
like an
ABBA
existential
spontaneously
crisis.
happens because ABBA is kind of like, music.
Break their mind.
So-
Like, God, everything that's happening is just
Anyway,
exactly like
long
this music.
story short, I think Mamma Mia takes place in a universe where Thanos destroyed ABBA. But maybe they became
forgotten.
part
Like all of
the
ABBA or just half of ABBA?
But two of them would be surviving still. Yeah.
That's true.
The A's survive, the B's die.
You're getting an A and a B either way. Like, and then long story short, then the rest of them kind of merge with the fabric of reality somehow,
Yeah.
kind of like,
And become
maybe like
the
a
world
pocket reality.
music.
Yeah, like a pocket reality where they are, yeah. I don't know where I started on it. Anyway, games that you think would benefit from a revamp.
I actually do have an answer. Well, it's a bit of a subversion of the question, but I'm updating Heat Signature at the moment, and the reason I'm doing that is because I feel like it needs an update. And
That's good.
we've done the first update I did was because after it came out, I realized, oh shit, people who are struggling with the game in general are finding it grindy, and I should cater better to lower skill players. And that immediately caused a reaction in the higher skill players of like, hey, make the game harder. What the fuck are you doing? It's too easy. Because at any given time, there are a bunch of people who think it's too easy and a bunch of people who think it's too hard. So now I'm making an update to cater to the harder players, which I wasn't gonna do because I didn't agree with them. And I'm very selfish and I only do things I want to do and that I think are fun and worth doing. And so I wasn't going to cater to the super hardcore players who just wanted to be like a mega challenging thing. But the thing that eventually made me think, okay, this is a game that needs an update. I do need to do this, is just reading more about what they wanted. I did like a survey of like, here are my ideas to make the game harder. What do you think of these? And also tell me about any of yours. And when I read theirs, I was like, oh shit, they want something totally different to what I'm thinking of. And it's all about like, if you have the best kit in the universe and all these other advantages, what is hard then? How could it ever be challenging then? And at first I thought, well, that's not the point. Restrict yourself, have less kit, take on harder challenges by, having less abilities. But then when I read about all like the things they wanted from that, I realized, oh, I don't want to do that. But actually, now that you mention it, as soon as you start talking about that, I suddenly think, oh, what would be difficult if you did have all the best kit in the universe, and got really excited about that. So that's ultimately why I'm updating Signature again, I didn't want to do any of the things people were asking me to do, but the problems they were identifying were problems that once I started to think about how I could solve them, the solution suddenly got really exciting and interesting. And then it started to feel like, oh, this game is missing something unless I do this. I need to do this now.
You need to be careful, Tom. You're on the verge of making the Destiny Endless Treadmill game. Where people just want growing challenges, make the numbers go up.
I really do think about that, especially with Destiny 2, because it's just fascinating to see how like so much work goes into it and everyone's so angry all the time.
Yeah, absolutely right.
And it was basically perfect, and then it was the worst thing ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Like if you get on that track, people will not.
That's why every update I do for Heat Signature, I'm like, this is the last update ever. You'll never get another fucking update. Shut up.
Yeah, but if you add an egg that turns into a dog,
what
a fun!
Could redeem itself.
Warframe.
Fucking Warframe barbershop court. Just 'cause it's fun to sing the phrase Warframe around.
It's fun. Good.
Good.
Question one down.
Well, I was going to say just director's cut of Mass Effect Andromeda. You know it's the right thing to do. Give that game its chance, you monsters.
Reasonable.
Next question comes from Chris, who writes, "Dear cheese grater, and there's a big queue at the bar. Fucking points for effort."
Yeah, wow.
What did you want again? Was it a lot? Oh, that's the continuous first bit. I fucked this up. Just wanted to say happy 250th to you. Thank you all for the entertainment your podcast brings me every week. You're very welcome. Thank you for saying so. Oh, you want the question? Well, what do you predict you'll be talking about in episode 500? By my cunning estimates, that's about 5 years away, lol. Thanks, Chris.
Mega Curie.
Oh yeah, the 4-dimensional puzzle game.
Yeah. Should be out by then.
Looking at trailers for that like 8 weeks ago, and man, that game's not been worked on, surely, right? Or it's impossible?
It's still being worked on. Apparently it's close now, but by that I take to think 250 more episodes of this podcast, and we're talking about it.
So hang on, that's a good point. Like, what most indie developers are either on a 1 year, 3 year, 6 year, or 10 year cycle, right?
Yeah, that's about it.
So which indie developers we know that are on a 6 year cycle who started working on a new game last year?
So like lots of long running stuff came out, like The Witness, that was 7 years. And he's working on something new now. He's making a whole new programming language
we'll
for
be
it.
talking about that in 5 years.
Yep. that'll happen. The Owlboy guys, maybe they're going to make something new. I don't know.
Owlman.
Owlboys to Owlmen. I mean, if that happens, we'll talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Oh, yes.
Oh god.
No, that's derailed every other.
Yeah.
That Moon Quest thing that just came out recently, that was like a 6 or...
I think so, yeah. 6
6-ish year. You didn't ask about this recently, Alex.
Very good one.
About people who spent a long time... fucking Iconoclasts.
Yeah. Distance is out very soon. The racing game that I haven't spoken to in many, many years, but like one of the first things I ever did for PC Gamer when I was a baby junior contractor freelancer was like a roundup of Christmas games, because I joined in November, and a free game to try over Christmas. And I think that the original version of Distance was Nitronic Rush, and I put that in the thing, and they were so grateful for the coverage that they sent me a message and said, "Oh, we're thinking about doing this, an actual sequel. We might kickstart it." And anyway, that's out next week or pretty soon.
Jesus.
So that's, my one career later.
Distance has taken so long, I was able to work on and release a game called Distance in the intervening time without any conflict.
But, whatever they do, maybe we'll be talking about that in 5 years.
Steve Swink one about Scale?
Scale. It's called Scale. That's still in the works. It hasn't come out yet, so we don't know what Steve Swink game we'll be talking about in 5 years' time. It might be Scale.
Yeah.
This is a good thing that we've chosen to take this question in this direction, because we are so bad at predicting trends otherwise.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well,
VR could be big.
You could be. Yeah.
It might be.
So this will be 2023.
Okay, so the guy who did Fidel, before that who was working on Ernesto, and before that who was working on a game called Storyteller. This is Daniel Ben-Mergui.
Yeah,
I don't know how to pronounce it. So he's 3 deep in his side project thing, and Fidel is out. That's done. So now I don't know if he's working on Ernesto or if he's gone back to Storyteller or if he has a whole new thing. But surely one of those games must come out in the next 5 years.
Thing is, if there is an episode 500, then that means we will have been doing the podcast for more than 10 years.
And we'll be Australian.
And we'll be Australian then. Which, I mean, well, I think I got caught on this, and it came up recently where we talked about like what will happen at E3 2018 thing, but I don't think I genuinely believe there'd be an episode 250. So I'm going to say it right now. I don't know if there'll be an episode 500. Not to end on a bum note, but, let's be
Chris
real.
predicts doom for podcast.
Let's be real. That's the actual future.
Yeah.
But I felt that way last time, and it happened anyway.
It keeps being the actual future.
It does. Yeah. I'm learning.
Alex on time.
All the time.
Being the
Yeah.
actual future.
It won't stop happening, which is my main issue with it. Yeah.
If it does stop happening, that will also be bad.
I guess it's a two sides kind of issue. Oh, events occur.
Have your say at crateandcrowbar.com.
Owlboys to Owlboys.
Can't we just stay Owl Boys? Owl Peter Pans?
Owlpans.
Owl Pans. What are we talking about?
I don't know. Should another question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Diffracti writes, greetings, PCG Ludo narrative christenance.
That's very good.
Oh, it's very
It's
good.
good.
One thing I learned studying physics is that adding complexity to a simulation doesn't necessarily make it better. You're trying to find out why something happens, not just if something is physically possible. For games, I think simulation should be about feel. And that's in asterisks, and I don't know how to pronounce asterisks.
Feel!
Feel.
Feel.
Warfeel.
Warfeel. No one's done a game called Warfeel. Why not? You got Warface.
Yeah, what was
Warframe.
Warface?
Warface
was that the Crytek
free-
one?
Yeah, it was the
Crytek.
Crytek free-to-play Call of Duty game.
Warface and
game.
Warframe, I couldn't really separate them.
You could,
they
but
were
you
the
also
same for a
couldn't
long
have
time.
thought, oh, there'll be a game called Warface.
I
or
needed
Warfeel.
one of them to die, and I think Warface has died now, so I can just have one.
Has Warface died?
It's still alive.
Is
Is it still
Warface die?
But what about
Warface.
Dead by Daylight, Deadlight, and Dying Light. Those are 3 different zombie games, and I cannot tell you which is which.
That's a good talking it fast challenge.
Tongue twister. Guess what word Alex is trying to say? The new game on crowbar.com/flash/games with a Z.
Tongue doer.
.asp.
Yeah. Oh man, when I was in sixth form, my dad got me a book called Learning ASP, and it's the least useful thing I own. Anyway.
Did you ever even encounter an asp?
Why can't we speak to the asp? The question continues after the sung word feel. Space sims can be precisely calculated, but you want them to accurately recreate the feeling of watching Han Solo do cool stuff. Just doing it. Just doing it. Just watching him do it.
Where he did the thing.
Oh, it's so good when he does it.
We've answered this already, haven't we?
It's so good.
It's forever.
So
Chris Philophamon actually answered this question.
It's so good when he does it and the spaceship's like, what games try too hard to simulate and end up firing cars into space? And what games nail the experience with the fewest variables? Love the pod, Diffracty. Bonus question, is the only reason Tom Senior has not followed anyone else into game development because he would have to change his Twitter handle from PCG Ludo?
Yes.
What are you going to do?
Yes, there is also an addendum to this particular piece of information, because I've recently...
So yeah, we may or may not have spun off on this already, but I basically just want to give Tom an excuse to talk about his profile picture.
Yeah, please. This is like a really important moment for me, I think, in my social media life. And I've always been known as PCG Ludo since I worked for PC Gamer, and that does continue. But up until this particular point,
this is sounding confessional.
I used a piece of artwork that beloved Marsh Davis, who appeared
This is
as
your
a ghost,
Goldblum mode.
as a ghost on recent podcast, and is now dead again. He drew that particular profile picture, and I chose recently to discard it, and it was an emotional and difficult moment for me, I think. And I just wanted to explain why I did it. It was, what happened was, I was writing an article about obscure games that popular developers have made, and one of those games was a game called Impossible Creatures by Relic Entertainment, a studio known for creating some of the greatest RTSs in the modern era, including Homeworld and indeed Company of Heroes. But in between those games, they made a video game called Impossible Creatures. And
I love that you're giving the speech at Relic's wedding.
I'm their best man. And I had 10 minutes to illustrate this article with a header image, an image that would appear on the front page of PCgamer.com, in the carousel no less, and in all the tweets and Facebook posts and all the things that matter if you're trying to make a story work. And I found a fucking amazing screenshot of the protagonist from Impossible Creatures, who I described as Brendan Fraser's face wrapped around a tin. I think you'll find that to be an accurate description. And I wanted to go into this particular character's in-game history, just so everyone can understand the decision I've made here because I indeed made this stupid fucking tin face my new profile picture. And the character's name, the lead character of Impossible Creatures, is called Rex Chance.
This is the best name I've heard since Jack Hard, which was, I can't remember the name of the game that they were protagonists of, but it was a low-rent FPS.
I don't want to give a clue about something I've been working on recently, but the name Sergeant Hammerman has been haunting me.
So Rex Chance has some lore that I thought you might enjoy from the Wikipedia page.
Is he a lovable rogue who goes against the rules?
Is he a Brendan Fraser mummy character?
In fact, he is, quote, from Wikipedia, disgraced war reporter.
Oh my god.
Disgraced.
He should never have copied that YouTuber.
Disgraced war reporter Rex Chance.
War Report was just a review of Dead Cells for some reason.
Travels to this archipelago, discovering that his father died at the hands of the evil tycoon Upton Julius.
Upton Julius.
My favourite.
Upton Julius.
Uptown Julius.
You've been waiting for it.
Downtown Julius.
Upton Julius.
That's what I am.
Oh God.
I knew this would be good. He vows to avenge his father's murder. He's assisted by the late doctor's assistant, Dr. Lucy Willing.
Fuck's sake.
With her help, Rex quickly learns the power of the Sigma technology.
The Sigma technology.
To blend animals together into weird hybrids.
To be fair, that is pretty much the Age of Sigma technology.
It's like 300 words and then also concept of the game. Yada, yada, yada.
During this process, latent abilities are made manifest within him. These abilities make him increasingly superhuman, allowing him to directly assist his Sigma creatures in battle. I don't really need to read much beyond this. All the funny names have happened. Most of the plot.
So is that like T-Rex and you're not totally certain about what he's going to make?
Well, his father's called Dr. Eric Chanikov. And I think they've sort of tried to bastardize it in a really
I see.
His full name is Rexamillion Chansford.
I might be biased, but I feel like if you described this whole plot to me and then you asked me, who do you cast as Rec Chance? I probably would have said Brendan Fraser.
Which is
it's George of the Jungle vibe.
2018 era dunk on Brendan Fraser opportunity.
I mean, I fucking love The Mummy. It's a fucking great film.
It's a good film.
And well done
Brendan
him.
Fraser's great.
He's good in it as well.
He is good in it. He's very likeable.
He's very likeable. Yeah. He's very charismatic. Yeah. And, which is why I stole his face right trying to paint.
He's just a bit of a Rex Chance.
What was the question?
I crowbarred that in. That was
if you did become a developer, you could keep your Twitter username and just make a game called Puzzle Carnage Game.
It's much easier than that. Just make a procedurally generated game.
Procedural Generation Ludo.
Procedural Generation Ludo.
Exactly. That's
Problem
what that would mean.
solved.
I'm on a 9-year schedule for this one. I have no funding. I'll be destitute before then. But it will be...
It's an MMO.
I will scrape together my last pennies to enter it into the IGF, but it won't be recognised.
It's Tom Senior's Speed Tree experience.
Sell it off as middleware.
What are we talking about?
I don't know.
We should do defractly the honour of answering his actual question.
Yeah, the question about simulation, what if simulation but too much?
So it was sort of what games have actually tried too hard to be simulations and ended up firing cars into space. Just once more onto the Musk dunk there. And what games nail the experience with the fewest variables? Like what games get closest to the fantasy that they're presenting but with the fewest sort of unnecessary elements?
It's, I mean, in space
I think
games...
it's a really interesting question.
Batman.
Just we talked about Brendan Fraser
the
for
Arkham
10 minutes.
games. The Batman Arkham fighting style. And
too much simulation?
The stealth combat.
No, I mean, it's the right amount, right?
That's a good example.
Yeah, it's just the right amount of stuff to make you feel like Batman without being overconfident.
Yeah.
Yeah, because actually being Batman, like,
you don't want to simulate it too much.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh no, I've fallen really far. Like, wait a minute, I've broken both my arms.
This man died of his wounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Times 1,000.
Double-check Lucius's incredibly complicated legal contracts to hide my incredibly complicated production facilities for legal weaponry.
In fact, this is true of like all detective games, right?
Right.
Like, it's like any Sherlock Holmes games, you're like, I'm fucking no.
Yeah, you don't want to go through the minigame where you have to actually take heroin as Sherlock Holmes in order to sustain his imagination and passion for playing the violin.
Well, so it's like the crafting games, which are like massively kind of simplified sort of systems, except for they just go on and on and on.
Yeah,
which are basically like sort of attempts at simulation, but like because it does start from the fantasy of. But what if you're in the woods and you actually have to survive and if you don't drink enough, you will die? Like, I've heard my son sort of say, but what, that would be brilliant. And it's like, it isn't.
Dad, I'm dying in the woods.
I want to die in the woods, Dad. I want to be thirsty in the woods.
Well, son. Warframe.
Absolutely.
I think the thing is, so recently I've been playing a few simulators. Actually, I'm working on something at the moment that's required me to play a bit of Silent Hunter, but also, I played some hunting games lately. I don't dig into it too much because I don't want to cannibalize other stuff. But Like, actually, I feel like, so dedicated sims, I fully respect them for being what they are. Like, I don't want to change a submarine game necessarily. And actually, the Silent Hunter series is very good for letting you dial down to a level of sort of simulation that feels like simulation, but is doing a lot for you, so that you're like, wow, I'm the best U-boat commander. And then it allows you to dial it all the way up to like, where's the fucking geometry? And
but it's like, but they're mega focused. That's the beauty of them. Like, you know, they're not asking you to kind of make sure the mess has got enough sausages or something.
True, but it's also, there's a lot of work to be done if you want to land a good torpedo.
Doesn't U-boat sound like the name that a Web 2.0 company would come up for a word submarine?
Yeah, yeah, it would actually, yeah.
I think that's
in many ways the Nazis' first crime.
Fucking hell. But also, like, so I honestly think this problem is, this like too much simulation problem is clustered densely around the space sim. Like, really densely. I can't, in fact, if anyone can think of maybe, just maybe you can make the case that this also surrounds the sort of the medieval sword fighting game to some extent. Those are two fantasies that people desperately so, yeah, maybe they both work. Both medieval sword fighting or fantasy sword fighting and spaceship combat. For this reason, neither of those things work anything like how they do in stories or movies. I mean, obviously space combat doesn't exist yet, but it wouldn't work like it does in Star Wars.
Trump's just authorized the Space Force.
I know, but
he's got this vision.
So
he does.
Yeah.
So those tend
right.
to be simulations caught at a very awkward crossroads behind what people want to be true and what is actually true.
Because you want to be, really just want to be Han Solo doing what they're doing.
Yeah, you want to be Han Solo, you want space battles to basically World War II dogfights, and you want your sword fights to be fencing matches between matched individuals, not like, if you watch like actual, you know, medieval or early modern sword play and how people would actually fight, it looks nothing like anything you've seen in a film or a story or a game. Like, you know, it's more about physical power and pushing and sort of getting advantage through, you know, sort of locked positions. And that's if you don't just get killed immediately by getting stabbed to death.
And then artillery.
And then guns are invented. Yeah, exactly. And so
I got a good kind of education in, you know, heat signature has Newtonian physics for objects in space, where if you keep thrusting one direction, or if you thrust in one direction, then you stop thrusting, you carry on going at that same speed. You do not ever stop unless you manually thrust in the other direction. And when I showed that to people at shows, yeah, the word thrusting, I'm just over it. I just went through it 3.5 years. Thrusting, I just thrusted in every direction, and now I no longer feel anything.
Ship. I'm over that as well.
And yeah, just watching those people thrust at those shows, you know, I learned a lot.
oh, no, come on, everybody. We've done this 250 times.
Watching, they understood that if they like got some velocity in one direction and then didn't do anything else, they'd keep it. And then they're just like, how do I stop? Well, you know how to change your speed, right? Yeah. Okay, well, do you know what direction you want to change your speed in? No. Well, it's the other direction. Just click in the other direction. Just whatever direction you're going, you click in the other direction, then you'll be going less fast in that direction, and eventually you'll stop. And then if you keep clicking, you'll go in the other direction. Like, it's so intuitive to me that I can't understand why it's not intuitive to another person.
Really angry.
But there are some people who just cannot get it, so we added a brake button, which is left click is thrust, right click is brake. And that just sold it for so many people. That was like 50% of the audience.
It is interesting. Yeah.
That's the fundamental concept of the universe. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's got to be Tom Senior's greatest. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if the game teaches this to someone,
that is the doings of the universe, right there.
But it's, I mean, like conservation of energy and, you know, force and direction.
Just do the energy
in space.
This
game could teach people that, right? I'm getting very Partridge here.
Tom, you could have educated.
Put Norwich on the map.
I don't know.
It like because if they don't get it, they don't like the game, and so they don't play it, and nothing happens.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, unlike a class, you don't have them locked in a room and
to be honest, like, we didn't change the physics. We just added a button that when you hold that button, your spaceship figures out how much stuff to apply.
Yeah.
And so you can mix between the two, and so it's possible that some people who would have been put off completely by the pure physicsy approach might have been lured in by the easy approach and then eventually figured out, oh, actually, it's
That's
better
how
if
Elite Dangerous handles it. By default, your ships in Elite Dangerous have like motion correction on them, so they're constantly like thrusting in the other direction. So to kind of like, it's essentially like they had two options. They were at a crossroads themselves. They called it like flight assist or something like that, and eventually you learn to switch it off if you want to do cool flips. But what they could have called it is like, I'm pretending to be a plane mode, where your ship tells you that I'm pretending to be a plane, you fucking idiot. And you're like, I don't want that on. My spaceship is insulting me. And they're like, yeah, now you know.
I think, the kind of example, I guess, would be Frontier Elite 2, which was kind of your dogfights were essentially going many millions of miles past your target and then thrusting back towards them as they're thrusting towards you, and getting to fire at them for a split second as you hurtle by each other at kind of like 5 billion.
It's funny. I always loved the way that Mass Effect had its cake and desperately ate it with this stuff. Where there's like 2 or 3 really good, like, sort of optional kind of moments in Mass Effect where you can come across someone explaining the physics of space combat. Like that great kind of drill sergeant in the first game saying like, do not fire in space unless you're planning on hitting something, because it will hit something eventually.
Yeah.
Like the level of kind of like granularity that games don't often consider, or anyone really considers, that like, if you're doing a space battle and your guns are facing planetwards, if you miss the thing you hit, you're hitting something on that planet. Like all of this stuff. And then the actual space battle sequences in Mass Effect, which are pure Star Wars.
Lasers.
Yeah, it's just like, whee!
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter at all. And it's like, you know, and they completely got away with it, which is the thing, right? Like, it actually, like, they could say one thing and do another, and it was like, I'm in a hard sci-fi universe, but also, yay! They did a cool
Which is the way to do it.
Yeah, it is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Just basically just shameless.
Just lie.
Yeah.
I think we talked before on the podcast about the idea of a true space combat game where you're actually firing flak or, you know, sensible, you know, sensible missiles. I always said sensible missiles.
The new game from Sensible Software.
You know, missiles with AI on board that could adjust their trajectory to actually.
You describe that as sensible.
Right. Yeah. A missile sensibly doing what it's supposed to eventually do. Just projectiles that you actually use gravity wells, you use kind of, you know, local space geometry to actually attack people from great distances. Like you could launch a devastating attack on all of the satellites around the Earth from Mars if you plotted certain like flak attacks and certain trajectories.
Sounds a lot like a supervillain's plan.
Yeah, well, it does, doesn't it? But what a game that would be, where it's almost like, I can imagine it being almost like AI War combined with Kerbal Space Program, where
oh man,
you're kind of adapting trajectory of your missiles to hit certain
Fuck, that's a really good idea, because that's also like, because like, there's an element of submarine game to that, which is the sort of like, this boat is going in this direction. If I fire this torpedo now, and the boat doesn't know that a torpedo's been fired, the boat can die in 5 minutes.
Stuff in space is not maneuverable.
Yeah,
everything is predictable.
Unless it changes.
I mean, things can adjust to an extent, but it's hard to, you know, you can't do a, you know, warplane thing of like spin.
But yeah, you're right.
Direction. Like, you could take it, there's a good combat game to be made there. Not a successful one that will sell any copies, because it will be based on very abstract concepts of combat.
But you say that Kerbal Space Program is huge. I think you've just invented Kerbal Space Program Silent Hunt.
Royale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100 Kerbins deposited
across the galaxy.
Across the galaxy.
It's a bit like
each going to eventually attain a level of spaceflight that allows them to kill the other
ones. Good. We took a beautiful, pure thing and made it
stupid.
About murder. Stupid and about murder.
And that is the new Warframe expansion.
Warframe.
Warframe.
Warframe. Oh my god.
Oh, fuck. That has to be, we have to cut that.
No, that stays in.
Oh god. That is all of the...
That was real bad.
Yeah. Oh well, if you're still listening, That is all of the questions we have time for. You can tell why we only have time for a few questions. Thank you for sending us a question, if you did. If you'd like to send us a question for a future episode, although we do have an appreciable backlog, you can email us questions at crateandcrowbar.com or tweet us at crateandcrowbar. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/crateandcrowbar, and on Patreon, on patreon.com/crateandcrowbar. Thank you very much to all of our Patreon backers who make this possible, including that harmony, if you can even describe it as that, for which... Oh, apologies, or maybe not enough. Tom is pouring himself what's left
the last of the whiskey.
If you would like to follow us as individuals, much like I followed every individual syllable through that roller coaster of an attempted sentence, you can find us on Twitter, I think. I'm at C Thurston, that's CTHURSTEN. Let's go around the circle in any direction.
Tom Francis, am at Pentadact, PENTADACT.
I, Tom Senior, am Brendan Fraser's face wrapped around a 10. At PCG Ludo on Twitter.
I, Alex Wiltshire, am rotational, ROTATAI. Oh, fuck it.
The measure of symmetry by which Brendan Fraser's face is wrapped around a tin.
Who are you, Chris?
I already said.
Did you?
Yes!
I missed it.
We can
I
do it
only
again
heard you
if you
talking
like.
about Brendan Fraser's face.
That was Tom.
Brendan Facer.
I'm the right way. I'm right next to you. It's fine.
You're the not Tom.
Tom, Alex.
We've done it.
Alex, you haven't had a single drop to drink.
I'm
That's
really
true,
tired.
actually. That's fair.
Don't think I'm very well.
Anyway. Warframe.
Warframe, everybody.
Warframe.
All for everybody.